After crossing over, I obtained a rare treasure that allows infinite resets. It can turn everything I truly experienced in each life into a simulated experience and allow me to be reborn at the set initial anchor point. That is, the point in time when I first crossed over to this world. At the very beginning, I didn't know of the rare treasure's existence. In my first life, after failing the imperial exams repeatedly, I started a small business and became a minor wealthy man. I married, had children, and lived an ordinary life. It wasn't until my deathbed that I awakened the rare treasure, Return to Truth. Only then did I have this second life of rebirth. And after learning, I had this cheat-like rare treasure. In this life, I was no longer content with being ordinary. Utilizing the accumulation from my previous life, I fought my way to the position of Grand Preceptor of the Kingdom of Taishian. I wielded power over the world, with 10,000 officials kneeling before me. Just when I thought the third life would be the same, I was surprised to discover that cultivators actually exist in this world. On this day, 2 cultivators suddenly arrived at Xianjing, the capital of the Kingdom of Taishian. From their conversation, it could be learned that they were originally good brothers. Now, however, they had turned into enemies over a core formation cultivation technique, and they revealed a key piece of information. That is, this place is an immortal severed land. That is also the reason why there are no cultivators here. And the reason Ko Hong, who was being chased, fled here was that he wanted to use the immortal mortal miasma produced by the mortals here to deal with his good brother, Dao Xuanzi, and thereby gain a slim chance of survival. Subsequently, Ko Hong destroyed Xianjing City without a second word. Naturally, my Grand Preceptor's manner could not escape either. After everything returned to calm, I, having luckily survived the disaster, woke up from the ruins. Looking at Xianjing City, surrounded by monstrous flames, I knew that not 1 in 100 commoners survived this catastrophe. Subsequently, I laughed aloud like a madman. My mind was filled with the thought, how could there be cultivators in this world? Because as early as the moment I became an official, I had done my utmost to have people search for traces of the immortal Tao. But no matter the direction, east, west, south, or north, not even a trace of a cultivator was ever found. I never expected that on this day, when I had given up and grown old, I would encounter them. Subsequently, I checked the charge of the rare treasure, Return to Truth. Currently, the charge is complete and I can reset at any time. But I chose not to use it for the time being. Instead, during the time of rebuilding Xianjing City after the disaster, I ordered the world's military forces to continue investigating the whereabouts of those 2 cultivators. But months passed. Xianjing City had already been rebuilt, yet the traces of those 2 cultivators were still not found. However, it could be roughly inferred that they came from the abyss in the east. It was about the same as I expected. Since that was the case, there was nothing left to be nostalgic about. I immediately activated Return to Truth to reset. In an instant, I returned to the time of my youth when I first crossed over. The system also presented the process of how I became the Grand Preceptor in my previous life, scene by scene. After the simulation ended, I could choose a reward, or choose no reward to accelerate the charging speed of Return to Truth in this life. Looking at the choices given by the system, I pondered seriously. First, options 1 and 2 would be helpful if I were a cultivator. But unfortunately, I was just a mortal in my previous life. All things considered, I safely chose option 4, no reward, to accelerate the charging speed of Return to Truth. Because the charge is not only for the reset function, it can also consume charging progress to protect me when I am in danger. This is also why I was able to survive the cultivator's attack in my previous life. Subsequently, I looked at my personal panel. The charge directly reached 30 progress. And although my biological age is 20, having lived 3 lives now, my psychological age is already 166 years. The limit is 1,056 years. The so-called psychological age is the threshold the mind can bear after carrying too many memories. If the burden is too heavy, it will crush the soul. And the stronger the psychological endurance, the more this limit increases. For me, this is nothing. As long as I can step onto the path of cultivation, nothing is a problem. The goal of this life is those 2 cultivators 50 years later. I will learn the secrets of cultivation from their mouths. They're in the light, and I am in the dark. There might be a chance. Besides researching guns and explosives, perhaps the immortal mortal miasma mentioned by that Ko-Hong is the key. And since they came from the Eastern Abyss, I can also send people to penetrate the bottom of the abyss to investigate first. What people fear most is having no goal. In my previous life, I reached the pinnacle of mortals and could go no higher. Even with a beautiful woman like the Empress Dowager by my side, I still felt empty and lost over time. Now that I've encountered cultivators, I naturally have a new goal. Cultivation and immortality. I want them both. With the accumulated experience of 2 lives, I still chose to participate in the Imperial exams afterwards. I easily seized the position of top scorer. Then, just like in my previous life, I chose to be an official in Wayne County. I quickly brought the officials of Wayne County, high and low, into submission, and I began to promote and cultivate the same confidence as in my previous life. Just like that, 5 years passed. I found the person who could replace the Prince of Langia. That is, the future emperor. Afterward, I had my confidants disguise themselves as refugees and attack the Prince of Langia's manor. I pretended to go to the rescue, but in reality, I coordinated from inside and outside to kill the Prince of Langia's family. At the same time, I had the double take his place. I successfully took control of the Prince of Langia's manor in secret. Time arrived at the 9th year. The fake Prince of Langia married the granddaughter of the Grand Secretary. But in reality, the one who had relations with the princess consort was me, and she gave birth to a son for me. Until the 20th year, I supported the fake Prince of Langia's son, who is my biological son, to claim the throne. I was once again appointed as the Grand Preceptor, wielding power over the world. Soon, it was the 35th year. The immortal seeking camp I planted in the abyss finally had results. According to their observations, every 15 years, the mist in the abyss disperses for half a day. At that time, light shines out from the bottom of the abyss, and using telescopes, they discovered various scenes. There are 100,000 mountains rising and falling. There are majestic buildings hidden within. There are towering cities standing on the plains with populations of no less than 1 million. There are even cities in the sky surrounded by glowing clouds, with various exotic beasts flying among them. Hearing this, I had an expression of as expected. It seems Ko-Hong and Dao Xuanzi came from the abyss. Subsequently, I asked if they found a way to go down, but my subordinates indicated they hadn't. They tried various methods, but once they descended to a certain depth, they would be torn apart by sudden fierce winds. Even the hardest armor wouldn't work. Hearing this, I sighed. I waved my hand to let him leave. It seems I can still only wait for Ko-Hong and Dao Xuanzi. Just like that, it was the 50th year. On this day, Ko-Hong and Dao Xuanzi appeared above Xianjing City once again. But this time, before the two could start fighting, various guns and firearms that had been ambushed in advance fired at them in an instant. Undoubtedly, these mortal weapons had no effect on them. After Ko-Hong blocked the incoming bullets, he felt very curious about these things. He snatched a firearm and examined it carefully. After looking at it, he was amazed. He didn't expect the mortals in this immortal severed land could research such mechanical structural weapons. It's a pity that this thing only has a deterrent effect among mortals. To immortals, it's just a pile of scrap copper and rotten iron. Originally, Ko-Hong felt somewhat unbearable about using the mortals here, but since the other party attacked first, they couldn't blame him. Just as Ko-Hong unleashed the Taoist magic fire dragon chant on Xianjing City, he was shocked to discover, although the houses were destroyed, not a single one of these mortal soldiers died. At this moment, Dao Xuanzi on the side finally spoke that we've been tricked. Just now, these weapons were soaked in the blood of mortals. Upon contact, one gets tainted with the immortal mortal miasma. Taoist magic is naturally weakened. Dao Xuanzi realized that the two of them had been ambushed. Clearly, the person in the dark came prepared. Both were decisive men. Upon knowing the weirdness of this place, they immediately prepared to leave first. But just then, a voice resounded in their ears that if you two flee, the news of you obtaining the core formation technique will spread throughout the entire cultivation world. Dao Xuanzi and Ko-Hong's expressions changed drastically. Who exactly is the opponent? Clearly, only the two of them knew the news of obtaining this technique. Just then, countless shells attacked them. Ko-Hong directly chose to face them head-on, but Dao Xuanzi realized something was wrong. He hurriedly told Ko-Hong to dodge. As the shells exploded, Countless drops of mortal blood turned into a rain of blood and fell. And the two who were tainted by it lost the power to resist. The soldiers surrounding them shouted warnings. Our Grand Preceptor has no intention of being enemies with you two. Just surrender and your lives can be spared. But unexpectedly, the power of this immortal mortal miasma was so great. It caused Ko Hong on the side to lose all his cultivation. After handing his storage ring to his good brother Dao Xuanzi and telling him to run, his lifespan ran out and he died unwillingly. And just then, a voice in the sky announced the information of his death. Ko Hong, who achieved his Dao foundation with a wonder dragon branch, was besieged by mortals in the immortal severed land. He inadvertently contracted the immortal mortal miasma, instantly lost his cultivation, and died at the end of his lifespan. Now dead and his Dao dissipated, he returns the Dao to heaven. Looking at his friend who died beside him, Dao Xuanzi was incredibly furious. And observing from behind the scenes, I sighed upon seeing this scene. Capturing immortals is hopeless in this life. I didn't expect the immortal mortal miasma's power to be so great. At this time, Dao Xuanzi struggled to stand up. I don't know who you are or what your purpose is. Since my brother and I were plotted against by you today, I have nothing to say. But I am very unconvinced. Hiding behind mortals and using such a despicable thing as a mortal miasma, which is despised by all cultivators. My brother, Ko Hong, dying at the hands of someone like you is not worth it. Now, let me show you my foundation establishment wonder. Dao Xuanzi slowly flew into midair and summoned his Dao foundation named Dao Xian. A gigantic flying sword appeared above. Then it fell towards Xianjing City. Seeing this scene, I knew I had failed, so I used Return of Truth to reset at the last moment. I returned to the initial point in time once again. I gasped heavily, still shaken. Is this the power of a cultivator at the great circle of foundation establishment? If not for the immortal mortal miasma, even if I reincarnated 100 times, I couldn't pose a threat to them. Sure enough, I still lack experience. I didn't expect the immortal mortal miasma to directly cause Ko Hong's death. Also, although the two of them came to the immortal severed land to fight for the technique, the fact that Dao Xuanzi used a suicidal sword strike shows their brotherhood was real. But why would they turn into enemies over technique? Suddenly, I thought of sentence Dao Xuanzi said in the third life. The golden core great Dao allows only me, no other. Could it mean that the core formation immortal method can only be used by one person? This would explain why those close as brothers could turn into enemies. However, this is not an issue for me. I have the possibility of infinite retries. Perhaps this time I can win over one of them first. Opening my personal panel, I found that the psychological age limit had increased to 1,080 years. After that, it was the same process of becoming the Grand Preceptor. Time flashed by, and the fourth life arrived at 35 years later. In the previous life, my subordinate said the thick fog in the abyss disperses once every 15 years. This time, I timed it perfectly to come and see for myself. Just then, a large amount of white mist surged out from the abyss. It lasted for a full half hour before the thick fog completely dispersed. I immediately took out my telescope and looked down. According to my subordinates' descriptions in the previous life, everyone saw different scenes. Unlike the prosperous immortal Dao they saw, I saw with the 4 words the immortal Dao is dead, and everywhere were dilapidated ruins. I was startled. What exactly is going on? Did some major upheaval happen in the cultivation world? Afterward, time came to the 50th year again. Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi still arrived above Xianjing City and confronted each other. This time, I changed my strategy. I ordered the soldiers' attacks to target only Ko Hong. And I shouted secretly from the dark, Ko Hong, you brat, we are here on Immortal Master Dao Xuanzi's orders, waiting for a long time. Ko Hong was shocked upon hearing this. How did Dao Xuanzi know I was fleeing here? When he discovered the bullets carried the immortal mortal miasma, he didn't care to think about the truth of it. He directly cursed Dao Xuanzi for being despicable. But Dao Xuanzi himself looked bewildered. When did I unite with these mortals? Just as he wanted to explain clearly to Ko Hong that someone was alienating them, I spoke up again from the dark. Does Immortal Master Dao Xuanzi want to turn hostile and deny it? Didn't we agree that after helping you kill Ko Hong and seize the core formation method. You would lead my clansmen to leave this immortal severed land? Hearing that this mortal knew so much, Ko Hong was completely convinced that Dao Xuanzi was the mastermind behind scenes. Otherwise, how could these people know about the core formation technique? Dao Xuanzi knew that words couldn't explain anything, so he used his divine sense to find the source of that voice in the dark. He immediately attacked that spot furiously, only to find it was just a thing similar to a sound transmitter. Dao Xuanzi frowned. He didn't expect this guy to be so cautious. And Ko Hong, clearly successfully alienated, was about to start fighting to the death against Dao Xuanzi. He directly launched a flame dragon's rage at the opponent. Dao Xuanzi sighed. Knowing he couldn't explain it clearly, he could only sacrifice his life-bound sword tool and fight. And I spoke again from the dark. Since Dao Xuanzi wants to turn hostile, we can only help immortal master Ko Hong. Ko Hong was overjoyed upon hearing this. As the saying goes, many injustices lead to self-destruction. Dao Xuanzi, you also have today. It just so happens I recently comprehended a new move. I'll use it to send you on your way. Taoist magic, prison dragon. Instantly, Dao Xuanzi was trapped as if in a cage. Dao Xuanzi was incredibly furious. Being plotted against by that treacherous person in the dark was one thing, but even his good brother of many years didn't trust him. So after breaking this prison dragon, he went to midair and directly used his Dao Foundation Dao Xian. Seeing this, Ko Hong also used his own Dao Foundation Dragon Branch. Instantly, both sides clashed with their ultimate moves, and I once again had the soldiers launch countless shells flying towards Dao Xuanzi. Instantly, he was surrounded by a large amount of mortal blood. Immediately after, Ko Hong's dragon branch pierced through his body. The voice in the sky sounded again, announcing Dao Xuanzi's death at the hands of Ko Hong. Afterward, I came before Ko Hong and respectfully requested him to save our lives. Ko Hong, however, looked at me with an unkind expression that a mere mortal dares to intervene in a battle between cultivators. I wasn't intimidated by his aura. I said with a serious face, it was just to seek a slim chance of survival. Ko Hong sighed upon hearing this. What is seeking a slim chance of survival? Times are hard. Who isn't doing the same? Subsequently, Ko Hong explained the power of the immortal severed formation. Even for him and Dao Xuanzi to leave, it would take some effort. How could they possibly take mortals with them? Hearing this, my expression changed drastically. Is there really no way? Ko Hong indicated that if there were a golden core cultivator, there might be a slight chance. Immediately, I invited him to a secret room for discussion. If my descendants cultivate to foundation establishment, would they be able to leave this place like you? Ko Hong laughed out loud upon hearing this. Don't mention that there is no spiritual energy here to cultivate. Speaking of the eternal separation between immortals and mortals, the mortals here are covered in miasma. How can they cultivate the immortal Tao? Unless you can go to the outside world to reshape your body and wash away the miasma. But it's also unlikely to get out. So I advise you to just be immortal properly. Hearing that immortals and mortals are eternally separated and there was no way, I walked out of the secret room expressionlessly. Ko Hong only thought my heart was dead as ash. Little did he know that right after I left, the immortal mortal miasma killed him. Since immortals and mortals cannot coexist, how could I, a mere mortal, completely trust you, a cultivator? At this time, Ko Hong was locked in a cell, covered in wounds. It turned out he didn't die. Instead, I controlled the dosage of the immortal mortal miasma. Without causing death, I made him lose all his cultivation to interrogate him. Finally, I obtained a report regarding the origin of the immortal severed land. Everything originated from a great change in the ancient cultivation world. Initially, a plague occurred among mortals. Cultivators didn't care much, thinking it was just a common plague, until the first cultivator was infected. This plague received a massive strengthening. It shifted to spreading through spiritual energy. It rapidly infected the entire cultivation world. Cultivators who were infected would at best suffer cultivation regression. At worst, they would lose all cultivation overnight and become mortals. Afterward, they would die and their Tao would dissipate, returning to heaven. In despair, cultivators vented their anger on mortals. Large-scale massacres targeting mortals began. But the plague didn't disappear with the death of a large number of mortals. Instead, as if losing its restraints, it caused even more cultivators to fall. So the cultivators decided to use the Great Migration Plan. They exiled all mortals in the cultivation world to various small worlds without spiritual energy, broken grotto heavens, etc., and permanently isolated them with grand formations, resulting in today's immortal severed lands, and the plague power existing within these mortals. Because it has special lethality against cultivators, it was called the immortal mortal miasma. When Ko Hong chose to flee here while being chased by Dao Xuanzi, it was also to use the power of the immortal mortal miasma to kill the opponent. He just didn't expect to be plotted against by me, a cheating mortal. After learning the truth, I was a bit unwilling. As a mortal, I only have a lifespan of 86 years, and infinite resets can only be within the range of my lifespan. Now at 70, I only have 16 years left. I want to cultivate, but can't. Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi can't take people away, and it's unlikely I'll meet other cultivators. So it seems to have become a dead end. I can only repeat the mortal life one lifetime after another. Suddenly, I thought of an important piece of information. That is, during the Great Migration operation, how were so many mortals transported? I interrogated Ko Hong about this question, and the other party seemed to actually know the hidden details. Even if you can get out, so what? At your age, it's impossible to cultivate. I simply asked him if he wanted to be a cultivator again. Although you have lost all cultivation now, if you return to the cultivation world, you should be able to cultivate again. As long as you help me find the way to the cultivation world, I can take you with me then. But Ko Hong, having been plotted against twice, didn't believe it at all. I told him to consider it, whether what I said is true or false. At least it's a hope dot. Or are you willing to just die of old age here? Sure enough, Ko Hong still yielded. Even if it was just a false hope, he could only gamble. He explained that the migration tools back then were magical artifacts similar to flying boats. In ancient times, this kind of artifact was very prevalent. Unfortunately, after the great changes in the world, cultivators were all in danger. They became solitary in their actions. Artifacts like flying boats were rarely seen. I was startled upon hearing this. I subconsciously asked, does the great change in the world refer to that immortal mortal miasma plague? But shockingly, Ko Hong shook his head. Although the immortal mortal miasma is weird, it couldn't shake the foundation of cultivators. The reason the immortal mortal miasma could run rampant is that more than half of the cultivators fell in another great calamity. Hearing this, I roughly guessed what it was. The Tao allows only me, no other. Even Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi, good brothers for years, could turn into enemies over a technique. The great calamity you speak of is that immortal methods cannot be cultivated together, right? Ko Hong nodded to indicate that was correct. Before the great calamity, the ancient cultivation world didn't have this restriction. At that time, numerous sects opened their gates wide to accept disciples and teach arts. Brothers cultivating the same technique could learn from and spar with each other to their heart's content. The entire cultivation world was a scene full of vitality. Until one day, someone discovered while cultivating that the efficiency had dropped drastically, and they could sense how many people were cultivating the same technique at the same time. The more people cultivating, the lower the efficiency became. Countless cultivators made no progress in their cultivation until their lifespan was approaching the limit and they could no longer hide the killing intent in their hearts. Former masters, disciples, and fellow sect members all turned into life and death enemies. A catastrophe sweeping through the cultivation world began just like that. As long as you practice the same method as me, we will not rest until one of us dies. Even if someone wanted to hide, it was useless, because people cultivating the same technique could sense each other's location. Hearing this, I asked curiously, then how does the cultivation world cultivate now? Ko Hong sighed. There aren't many choices. One is to join the Immortal Alliance formed by numerous cultivators. Exchange contribution points for techniques and resources. 2 is the Five Elders Association created by 5 mighty figures. As long as one has cultivation aptitude, they can join. The price is signing a divine soul contract to serve for a certain period. After listening, I was a bit puzzled that IT doesn't look like there's a lack of techniques. Ko Hong smiled helplessly, because what is obtained through these methods are all incomplete techniques. They were all newly compiled by major powers in recent years. One can only cultivate to the great circle of qi refining. And to break through to a higher realm, one must change techniques. That is to say, one must change techniques once for every major realm. I stroke my beard, but wouldn't that mean having to recultivate the technique every time one breaks through? Wouldn't previous efforts be wasted? Ko Hong indicated that wasn't the case, because everyone cultivates a remnant chapter of the supreme, primordial true scripture. This is a secret method that allows one to dissolve their realm at will without loss. So after recultivating a new technique, the realm can catch up very quickly. I didn't expect such a miraculous secret method to exist. However, this looks like a conspiracy no matter how I see it. How did it appear so coincidentally, allowing cultivators of the world to accept constantly changing techniques? Ko Hong was also very helpless. Even if it is a real conspiracy, so what? True techniques are hard to seek. Dao Xuanzi died without knowing. The technique I snatched wasn't just a core formation technique. It was a true art leading straight to nascent soul. Next, Ko Hong and I chatted more and more enthusiastically. He also introduced me to the common knowledge of cultivation, where a cultivator's fall triggers celestial phenomena within a certain range. That was the voice that sounded after Dao Xuanzi died. Subsequently, he mentioned a certain rumor. That is, over thousands of years, there have been mortals in various immortal severed lands sneaking back to the cultivation world. However, there is no actual evidence. He had only heard of it, but I know there is no smoke without fire. Since there are rumors, it means someone definitely succeeded. Seeing that I understood almost enough, I also gave Ko Hong a promise. As long as we can find a way to the cultivation world, not only will I let you go back with me, I won't even want any of your Dao Xuanzi's things. Even that nascent soul true art. Ko Hong exclaimed in surprise upon hearing this. Is this true? After receiving my nod, he vowed solemnly to help with all his might. Just like that, with Ko Hong's assistance, I collected historical books and record from all over the world, hoping to find clues about the Great Migration era in them. At the same time, I mobilized the army to excavate various ancient tombs. Although it caused public resentment to boil, I forcibly suppressed it all. Unfortunately, until 16 years passed. That is, at the last moment of my mortal lifespan, I didn't find it. And before starting a new reset, I took out the storage ring I had treasured for a long time. I confirmed that the technique Ko Hong spoke of was true. It's a pity to have a treasure mountain, but no fortune to enjoy it. Floating beside, it was Dao Xuanzi's Dao Foundation sword tool. Normally, a wonder would lose its creation marvel with the death of the cultivator. But today, I discovered that this supposedly useless sword tool could actually be absorbed and charged by my return to truth. At this moment, looking at the window, prompt appearing on the Dao Xian sword, I realized that wonders used for building Dao foundations can actually charge return to truth. I confirmed the usage immediately. I obtained 1 anchor point charge progress. Currently, there is only 1 anchor point. And according to the feedback from Return to Truth, as long as the anchor point charge progress reaches 100, a second anchor point can be opened. In the future, when choosing to reset, I can arbitrarily choose a time anchor point to restart. This is naturally a good thing for me. Although wonders are uncommon, the cultivation world is vast and boundless, so the chances are still great. Afterward, I chose to reset again. As usual, several choices were given. Unlike before, this time I chose the reward of keeping 1 item. Unfortunately, the items inside the storage ring couldn't all be kept. I naturally chose that nascent soul technique. Subsequently, I opened the panel and found that this 1000 machine jade ring gold chapter technique was successfully bound. That is to say, it will permanently exist within Return to Truth. It was an unexpected surprise I hadn't anticipated. Afterward, I began to plan for this life. In the previous life, because of the sudden large-scale excavation of ancient tombs, it was too shocking and appalling. It caused public resentment to boil, and there were also many opposing forces in the court. This time, I have to change the thinking of the people of the world first. Using Chinese classic ancient books like the Great Learning, Analects, Nanhua, and Dao De, I secretly created the Visiting Antiquity School. As soon as these ancient books appeared, they immediately shook the world. Subsequently, when the emperor was critically ill, I had the visiting antiquities school present a pill. In just a few days, he recovered as before. This made the emperor obsessed with the theory of immortal elixirs. It also made the people of the world believe that there are not only ancient books in ancient tombs, but also life-extending immortal medicines, etc. Until the 15th year passed, the emperor became critically ill again. To seek immortal elixirs, he had no choice but to send a large army to excavate ancient tombs. Although he didn't find any this time, and the emperor died with regret, the trend of visiting antiquity and searching for tombs have been driven up in the world. And all of this was naturally driven by me behind the scenes. Afterward, it was still the process of me becoming the grand preceptor. This time, ordering the excavation of ancient tombs in the world. No one opposed it anymore. As ancient tombs were excavated one by one, the lost history of this immortal severed land was gradually completed. The earliest dynasty was named Qi. I immediately offered a reward to the world. Anyone who can find a Qi dynasty ancient tomb will be granted the title of Marquis or General. Just like that, in the 25th year, the tomb of the first emperor of the Qi dynasty, Yi Xing, was finally found. Its main tomb passage stretches for 100 meters. Both sides are filled with lifelike murals. And inside the main burial chamber, the tomb ceiling above seems to imitate the layout of stars. It is inlaid with thousands of night pearls. Mountain peaks stand in great numbers, submerged in a sea of clouds. Even the path forward is a sea of clouds. I knew these were methods of the immortals. It seems I found the right place. Arriving at the highest peak, there was only a simple thatch cottage here. But upon walking closer, I discovered this thatch was actually made of gold wire material. To prevent accidents, I first let soldiers scout the way. After opening the door, the imagined danger did not appear. Instead, I looked at a certain spot inside the room in surprise. It turned out that the Qi dynasty emperor Yi Xing was actually a Taiyin sect outer disciple. I guess that although this guy joined the Taiyin sect, there was a high probability his aptitude was poor. So he was also exiled here. I didn't expect him to miss his former sect so much. Even in death, he wanted to set up a tablet as an outer disciple. However, in the previous life, according to Ko Hong, the sects of the world should have all dissipated in that great calamity before the Great Migration era. It seems there are other hidden details within. It's also possible that this Yi Xing was entrusted by Taiyin sect cultivators to be responsible for the Great Migration of this immortal severed land. Then perhaps the flying boat used for migration can be found. Since nothing could be found in the main burial chamber, I had people excavate the surrounding areas of the ancient tomb. Sure enough, in a nearby auxiliary burial chamber, a list of records containing the words flying boat was found. But the result made me incredibly furious. This auxiliary burial chamber had already been robbed, and according to the traces, it happened over 1,000 years ago. I overturned the table unwillingly. Hopes were shattered before my eyes time and time again. My mentality had somewhat exploded. With no other choice, I had to continue offering rewards to the world. Wanted to find clues about the immortal boat. Time flashed by to the 35th year. News that shocked me arrived. A group of people found a burial chamber suspected to belong to an immortal. I hurriedly had people bring the immortal mortal miasma. Subsequently, I arrived in front of this burial chamber. I sprinkled the mortal blood possessing the power of the immortal mortal miasma on the protective formation of the burial chamber. Sure enough, it was easily broken open. Then the excavation team went in. Not long after, good news came. Among the burial objects, there was something similar to a flying boat. Hearing this, I ran in anxiously, but the scene I saw made me extremely puzzled. This flying boat was actually the size of toy. Afterward, through the information carved on the wall by the tomb owner, I finally understood the sequence of events. This person was named Qian Hong, a foundation establishment cultivator. More than 3,000 years ago, he was chased by enemies. With no way out, he chose to hide in this immortal severed land. But the immortal severed land has no spiritual energy. After Qian Hong used up the spirit stones on him, soon there was no spiritual energy to replenish, and his cultivation continued to drop. To leave, he also began to search for the whereabouts of the flying boat. Later, he found a flying boat in Yixing's tomb. But what made him despair was that the power core formation of this flying boat was damaged. He wasn't skilled in artifact refining and couldn't repair it. In the end, he gave up the idea of leaving this immortal severed land and left a last testament, hoping that if a fellow cultivator finds his tomb in later generations, they can take his corpse back to the cultivation world. And the items he left in the burial chamber are the reward. The first item, a broken steel, is the wonder of heaven and earth I needed. Unfortunately, it can no longer be absorbed. The formation guarding the burial chamber before was its doing. It was ground down into an ordinary stone by the power of the immortal mortal miasma. Subsequently, I picked up the 2 jade slips on the side. One is the Qi refining technique, small return to truth art. The other is the foundation establishment technique, cloud water record. Seeing that the current number of cultivators for both is 1, my eyes narrowed. Could it be a trap set by the tomb owner? But thousands of years have passed, let alone a foundation establishment cultivator. Even a golden core cultivator's lifespan wouldn't last. But how could someone be cultivating this technique? I suddenly thought it might be due to the original archives. After the Great Calamity, many techniques were compiled by forces like the Immortal Alliance and the Five Elders Association. Then original archives must exist. Perhaps seeing that no one was cultivating these 2 techniques of Qianhong anymore, they replicated them again and put them out as rewards for people to exchange and use. I estimate that in thousands of years, these 2 techniques have changed owners countless times. If this is true, I can only say these major forces are really black-hearted. And the last item is naturally the flying boat. Its name is the Taiyin boat. It is exactly the tool Taiyin's sect used to migrate mortals. The internal formation is indeed damaged. But for me, this is not an issue. I naturally wouldn't fix it, but someone will. Afterwards, at the 50-year mark, the familiar Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi arrived once again above Xinjing City. And this time, I chose to appear openly before them. It is merely a core formation technique. Why must you 2 fight to the death? Why not come down for a chat? Although surprised by my qi, they chose to listen to what I had to say. I told them my ancestor left a prophecy on his deathbed. In later generations, 2 people would come from the east of the abyss. They would be the opportunity for our clan to escape this place. For so many years, my clansmen were skeptical until today when the prophecy has been verified. Dao Xuanzi and his companion were naturally not so easily fooled. After all, they had never heard of any divination technique that could predict events 1,000 years into the future. I spoke a name that surprised them. Have you 2 ever heard of the Taiyin sect? Ko Hong said in shock. Could it be that sect from the ancient era that specialized in divination techniques? Hearing this, I secretly breathed a sigh of relief. I didn't expect this Taiyin sect to actually be famous for divination. It seems my plan to hoodwink them has worked. So I directly admitted it. That is correct. My ancestor was a member of the Taiyin sect. Although my ancestor was not adept at cultivation, only reaching the qi condensation stage, he was extremely proficient in the art of divination. Later, because mortals needed to migrate, my ancestor worried about his own family, so he requested to be in charge of the migration operation here. He remained in this immortal severed land with the family. Hearing such a complete story where every detail matched up, Dao Xuanzi and his friend basically believed it in their hearts. They asked what I wanted. I immediately stated my purpose. Seeing you 2 fellow Taoists become enemies over a core formation technique, is it really worth it? My ancestor passed down a golden core technique before he died. Surely you 2 wouldn't need to fight over a technique anymore. Ko Hong was incredibly excited upon hearing this. After all, he and Dao Xuanzi were friends for many years. Not fighting was definitely best. Dao Xuanzi also asked excitedly what conditions were required. Just say it. I brought up the ancestor again, stating that his lifelong wish was to return to the Taiyin sect, but the flying boat's core formation is damaged. He divined that one of you 3 enjoys crafting. So, as long as you can help my clansmen repair the Taiyin boat and escape this dead land, that is enough. Hearing this, both Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi were astonished. Your ancestor's divination skills were truly that powerful? He could even calculate the Dao we specialize in? Truly a marvel. I knew verbal promises were useless, so I offered to take them to see the technique with their own eyes. Originally, Ko Hong wanted to go see it too, but he was stopped by Dao Xuanzi. What, brother, you've obtained a core formation technique and you're still not satisfied? Ko Hong had to awkwardly say, then I won't go. Subsequently, we arrived at the underground secret chamber. Dao Xuanzi was immediately awestruck, simply because the chamber was full of the power of the immortal mortal miasma. I walked in as if nothing was wrong and explained, this is just to protect the technique. After all, you three are all cultivators. Then, standing at the doorway, I took out the technique for Dao Xuanzi to see. And when he saw that it was actually a nascent soul technique, Dao Xuanzi was shocked beyond belief. Didn't you say it was a core formation technique? So I explained this was all out of necessity. After all, if I said it was a nascent soul technique, you three might have started fighting again. Dao Xuanzi clasped his fists in admiration. You are truly meticulous. Please rest assured, my brother is proficient in the art of crafting. I will definitely have him help you repair the tie-in boat. Everything was developing according to my expectations. I smiled. That is excellent. As long as the flying boat is repaired, I will offer this technique to you with both hands. After returning to the residence, Dao Xuanzi sent a voice transmission to Ko Hong. He confirmed the technique was indeed real, but he didn't reveal that it was actually a nascent soul technique. However, Ko Hong immediately harbored malicious thoughts. Then let's just rob him. He's just a mere mortal anyway. However, since it was actually a nascent soul technique, Dao Xuanzi naturally didn't want Ko Hong to know. To avoid exposure, he persuaded him better not. This Li Fan is, after all, a descendant of the Tai-Yin sect. And you heard that terrifying prophecy. If we rob him by force, who knows what accidents might happen? Besides, it's just repairing a flying boat. It won't waste much time. Just like that, with Dao Xuanzi's help in persuading him, Ko Hong agreed to help me repair the flying boat artifact. Time flew by, and a year passed. On this day, the tie-in boat was finally repaired. Except for the defensive and offensive formations, which were limited by materials and could only be simply repaired, the other functions were basically intact. In short, handling the immortal severed formation shouldn't be a problem. Additionally, the artifact is powered by spiritual energy and requires spiritual sense to control. It has 3 size forms: 10 meters, 100 meters, and 1,000 meters. Ko Hong explained that they didn't have many spirit stones either, but they would place enough for the 100-meter form to leave this place. He also recommended himself. Piloting requires at least chi condensation stage spiritual sense. We too can help. However, I directly transformed it into the 100-meter form, leaving Ko Hong and his friend dumbfounded. You are clearly immortal, yet you can control the tie-in boat. Truly a marvel. I laughed. It's just a small trick, not worth mentioning. I must thank you, 2 fellow Taoists, for your help. Since it is done, the technique is yours as promised. Just like that, 3 days later, Dao Xuanzi and Ko Hong, having obtained the technique, bade me farewell. Ko Hong said that if there was a chance, I could come to Lingtian City in the Songyun Mountain Range to meet him again. Before leaving, he also gifted me a map of the area near the Immortal Severed Formation's exit. Finally, after exchanging pleasantries, they turned into streaks of light and left. On the way to the abyss, Ko Hong asked Dao Xuanzi what kind of technique it actually was. Dao Xuanzi just laughed. Nothing much, just an ordinary core formation technique. It can't be the same as yours. Then, the two disappeared into the thick fog of the abyss. Not long after they left, I piloted the tie-in boat and also arrived at the abyss. In this life, I was already 71 years old. I definitely could only reincarnate again before attempting the cultivation world. Today, I would just test the power of this immortal severed formation first. As soon as I entered the thick fog, there was a feeling that made me feel extremely unreal. I don't know how long I sailed, but the tie-in boat suddenly seemed to hit something and started to shake. I thought of the wind layer Ko Hong mentioned. The wind blades here could easily tear apart a mortal body. Fortunately, the protective formation was there. After careful maneuvering, I crossed the wind layer after half an hour. Finally, I escaped the immortal severed formation. After arriving in the cultivation world, I happened upon a rare technique and formed a golden core in 100 years. Afterwards, the path was smooth, and in just 1,000 years I ascended. And after reaching the immortal world, starting step by step from the bottom, I finally became an immortal emperor who looked down upon the immortal world. Then I broke the barrier and ascended to the god realm. Starting from a minor, I cultivated to become a god king, becoming the strongest existence in the God realm. But above that, there was the primordial God realm. After ascending, I started from scratch again. Cycles of reincarnation repeated. Just then, I suddenly opened my eyes, realizing I had just fallen into the illusion of the illusion layer. At this moment, both I and the flying boat were upside down. I knew I had arrived at the third layer, the inverted layer. The flying boat seemed to be sailing automatically. Otherwise, I don't know how long I would have been trapped in the illusion. Just like that, following the mysterious guidance of the tie-in boat, I only needed to provide power and accelerate forward with all my might. Before long, the tie-in boat automatically arrived at the fourth layer, the fire layer. I guess it might be because this tie-in boat was originally used specifically for migration, so it must have been designed internally to automatically traverse the immortal severed formation, thus passing through layers of different elements one after another. I finally arrived at the seventh layer, the darkness layer, a layer full of darkness. According to Ko Hong, this layer was only dark and had no danger. Just as I excitedly thought I was finally going to the cultivation world, a bloody maw appeared the next second, swallowing the tie-in boat. Fortunately, at the last moment, I used Huan Zhen to load the save, returning once again to the initial anchor point. I gasped heavily in fear. What exactly was that monster? Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi didn't encounter it in the darkness layer. So why did I meet it? Could it be a special measure targeting mortals? It seems I still have to wait for the fog to clear once every 15 years before exploring the abyss again. Although I failed to cross the formation in the last life, at least I could choose to keep the tie-in boat item. Bound items. Thousand Machine, Jade, Universe Golden Chapter, tie-in boat. Like the nascent soul technique, they are permanently bound. With a new life, I had plenty of time planned. In this life, I first took my confidence to Qian Hong's tomb, controlling the amount of immortal mortal miasma so as not to destroy the broken steel. I successfully absorbed and charged this wondrous object. It instantly charged the anchor progress to 26. Afterwards, in the 5th year, I couldn't resist going to the abyss to observe again. But I don't know why. After looking for a while, my eyes turned red and my mental state began to change inexplicably. I had a feeling of wanting to rush across immediately, but clearly, Huan Zhen hadn't finished charging yet. If an accident happened, I would surely die. Just then, a bright light flashed in the abyss. My mind returned to normal. It turned out that just now, countless voices in my head were trying to bewitch me into entering the abyss. I almost fell for it. After that, I lived through the 20th year normally. After Huan Zhen finished charging, I had the confidence to brave the abyss again. In the end, the tie-in boat easily passed the first 6 layers again. This time, I chose to stop at the entrance of the darkness layer, preparing to observe the traces of the monster inside first. But after a long time, there were no results. With no other choice, I had to accelerate the tie-in boat to full speed and enter the darkness layer again. As a result, as soon as I entered, I encountered that familiar bloody maw opened wide, waiting. My face grew grave again. It seems, as I guessed, this unknown monster has great malice towards mortals. Perhaps its mission is to devour any mortal who approaches this layer. At the critical moment, I piloted the tie-in boat to turn around and return to the previous layer, the thunder layer. After returning to the thunder layer, the monster stopped chasing. Borrowing the light of the thunder layer, I finally saw the complete form of this monster. It was actually a massive giant whale. I looked at it unwillingly. I was clearly just one last step away. Just like that, in the following 15 years, I tried countless times to force my way through the darkness layer, but I still couldn't get past the blockade of the giant whale's bloody maw. However, I found a sliver of possibility in it. That is, whenever the abyss fog cleared once every 15 years, the giant whale seemed to be delayed by something for a moment. It took a while before it came to block me during that time. Perhaps relying on that little extra time, I could fly to the bottom of the abyss. So, during the fog clearing period of the 35th year, I gave it my all, preparing to rush through at top speed. However, just as I was about to break through the darkness layer and approach the glowing exit, that giant whale still appeared before my eyes at the last moment. I knew it was too late. I could only use Huan Zhen again to start a new life. It really pissed me off. Then, looking at my personal panel, I found that the psychological age limit seemed to stop increasing, halting at 1,116 years. And currently, I had already used 368 years. That meant I had 748 years of psychological age left to squander. In this life, I went to Qian Hong's tomb again. Using the same method as the previous life, I continued to absorb the broken steel. The anchor charging progress reached 51. After that, it was waiting for Huanjun to charge. Time reached the 35th year. Countless attempts again. I still couldn't break through the giant whale's big mouth blockade. Time reached the 50th year. I stopped trying to break through the darkness layer and decided to meet Ko Hong and Dao Xuanzi to see if I could get information about the giant whale from them. Just like before, I used the ancestors' prestige and the technique to lure them. After gaining their trust, I took out a drawing of the giant whale and asked if they had seen it. Of course, I pushed all this onto the ancestor, explaining that my clan had been trying to escape this dead land. But every time we were stopped by the giant whale at the end, so we wanted to know its origin. But Ko Hong didn't recognize it after looking. He didn't seem to have seen this giant whale. Dao Xuanzi on the side, however, made a sound of surprise. It turned out he had seen it in ancient texts. It is said that in the ancient era, there was a sect named the beast-taming sect. They didn't have any profound techniques, but relying solely on a beast-taming art. They could control the heaven and earth strange beasts for their own use. And among the several most famous strange beasts of the beast-taming sect, this kind of giant whale seemed to be included. Hearing this, Ko Hong thought of something. Now that you say it, I remember. This strange beast seems to be called the rift whale. Hearing this, I said excitedly, "Then do you two have a way to avoid it?" But this is a strange beast from the ancient era. The two helplessly said they didn't. They had only heard a little about this ancient strange beast. I sighed, I still have to rely on myself? Afterward, disheartened, I ended this life. In the new life, I intended to absorb the broken steel again. But this time, Huanjun had no reaction. Helpless, I could only continue to brave the darkness layer. However, after countless attempts over 65 years, there was still no hope. No matter how fast I was, the giant whale always appeared in time. Until in this life, with only 1 year of lifespan left, exhausted and running on fumes, I chose to make one last attempt in this life. This time, I gave up all control over the tie-in boat, letting it drift by itself from the first layer down the abyss. Slowly drifting down, the result astonished me. The tie-in boat, moving slowly at a constant speed all the way, actually didn't encounter the giant whale when it reached the darkness layer. Seeing the exit right ahead, I excitedly took over the tie-in boat's controls again, adding full power to fly towards the exit at top speed. But just then, the giant whale appeared behind me again. I was a bit confused why the giant whale suddenly appeared. Could it be that the opponent cannot see or ignores objects moving at constant velocity? Will I be safe as long as I maintain the same speed? Thinking of this, I laughed happily. This final lock to leaving the immortal severed land was finally thoroughly unlocked by me. Finally, amidst my wild laughter and the giant whale's roar, I piloted the tie-in boat and broke through the gap in the darkness layer, heading towards the cultivation world. I don't know how long passed. I felt like I instantly crossed the distance of several worlds. Under immense pressure, I bled from all 5 orifices, but I didn't care. At this moment, I looked back at the immortal severed formation behind me. As my perspective rose, I could see it clearly. Then I saw a scene I would never forget in my life. There wasn't just one rift whale. There were thousands upon thousands of rift whales there, carving out patches of pitch-black space in the void. In the immortal severed land, I escaped from grew further and further away, finally flying out from a gap. Looking at the towering mountains around me, I knew I had finally arrived in the cultivation world I had been longing for. However, my lifespan in this life had reached its end. After confirming there were no issues, I chose to load the save again. Originally, I wanted to forego the reward as usual to accelerate Huanjun's charging. But this time, I saw a familiar item that could be retained. It was that damaged, wondrous object, the halting broken steel. After thinking it over, I decided to keep this object, preparing to verify a conjecture in my heart. Just like that, my 10th life began. Subsequently, I came outside Qian Hong's tomb again. But this time, I didn't use the power of the immortal mortal miasma. Instead, I took out the halting broken steel. Unexpectedly, a wondrous change occurred. The broken steel slowly merged into the tomb's protective formation. Sure enough, my conjecture was verified. Wonders of heaven and earth possess uniqueness. Two identical, wondrous objects should not exist in the world. Yet, using Huanzhen, I created an identical one out of thin air. The result of this is that the two wondrous objects automatically merge, ultimately returning to one. Afterwards, I controlled the amount of immortal miasma to break the formation and enter. After merging, that broken steel looked much newer, but it still couldn't be absorbed. I estimated that I needed to repair this broken steel a bit more before Huanzhen could continue absorbing it. So I stored this enhanced version of the broken steel in the tie-in boat for now as assets for when I go to the cultivation world later. Time flew by to the 20th year. I ruthlessly raided a batch of corrupt officials, landlords, and powerful gentry. I stored all these gold, silver, and jewels in the tie-in boat. I would definitely need them when going to the cultivation world. After that, I prepared to scrape together a large amount of grain. Originally, the court officials were objecting, as grain is the foundation of the country. But when I enlarged the tie-in boat in front of them, they were all shocked by my immortal means. They actively and diligently helped me prepare the grain. Just like that, after everything was ready, I had no more attachments. The moment Huanzhen finished charging, I sailed into the abyss. Just like the previous life, I let the tie-in boat move forward at a constant speed on its own. Sure enough, I didn't encounter the rift whale's obstruction again. I experienced the tearing sensation of crossing two worlds once more. Fortunately, I adapted this time and wasn't injured. However, an accident happened at the exit. When I looked at the surrounding vast ocean scenery, I was a bit dumbfounded. Why is it different from the towering mountains I saw when I came out in the previous life? I looked at the map of the exit Kohong left me before, but I didn't find the location of the sea. With no choice, I had to take it one step at a time, praying to find a place with people before my spirit stones ran out. Until, after flying for more than 10 days, just before the power ran out, I finally encountered a large ship. When I looked through the telescope, I discovered that the large ship was sinking. There were dozens of people escaping around it. Judging by the situation, they were all mortals who seemed to have been attacked by something. Just then, I overheard someone among them loudly comforting the crowd. He had already sent a signal to contact the immortal master, who would come to save people very soon. Hearing this, my heart stirred. I secretly put away the tie-in boat and swam from the sea towards their location. I immediately pretended to be struggling to survive, quietly blending in to wait for the so-called immortal master's arrival. Before long, a figure appeared in the sky above. He seemed to have cast some spell to conceal himself. His face couldn't be seen clearly at all. With a shout from him, I found the surroundings instantly fell silent. I couldn't make any sound myself either. Then I saw the damaged large ship nearby, slowly flying into midair. I don't know what spell that cultivator used, but in just a moment, he completely repaired the large ship. Finally, with a casual wave of his hand, he saved everyone who had fallen into the sea onto the ship. Then he asked who sent the signal. The person who spoke before bowed respectfully that IT was this lowly one, Su Changyu. The cultivator warned, "You all understand the rules, right? I haven't seen you, nor do I know who you are. Once we arrive, everything has nothing to do with me." Su Changyu bowed again, indicating he understood. Finally, that cultivator came to the bow of the ship. I don't know what spell was used, but the large ship headed in a certain direction at extremely high speed. Until after dark, we finally arrived at a place with human habitation. It looked like a very prosperous island. However, the large ship didn't stop at the port. Instead, it circled the island to a sparsely populated limestone cave on the back. After the large ship docked, we saw several men in black waiting there. The men in black acted as if they didn't see the cultivator, simply herding the people on the ship to get off. Then we were taken to a spacious hall. At this time, one of the men in black spoke up. "Tonight you will rest here. There is food and such. Help yourselves. Tomorrow someone will take you to get your identities registered." After the men in black left, I eavesdropped on this group's conversation. It turned out they were mortals who had smuggled themselves from an immortal severed land called Great Lee. At the start, there were nearly 100 people. Later, they were attacked by sea monsters, leaving less than half. Except, unlike the immortal severed land I was in, the greatly they were in didn't seem to treat knowledge of the cultivation world as a secret. Moreover, They had even developed such a smuggling route. Just then, a fat man came over looking for me. "Brother, you look a bit unfamiliar. I wonder what position you held in Great Lee, or which prefecture's wealthy merchant you were." I didn't answer, only looking at him viciously. Sure enough, the fat man was scared by the aura I had developed from years in high positions. He didn't dare ask more and walked away. Just like that, the next day came. A middle-aged man walked in a while. "I will take you to get your household registration. Afterwards, you will be members of Leoli Island. Of course, you should know what not to say, right? Otherwise, I cannot guarantee your safety. If anyone asks, just say you are residents of Western Dayu Island. You fled here because the island was destroyed by a wind disaster." Then we changed into the prepared tattered clothes and followed the middle-aged man and the men in black. Soon we arrived in the town on the island. Although our group of dozens was very conspicuous, the surrounding residents ignored us after a glance. They seemed accustomed to this. After circling the residential area several times, we finally arrived in front of a residence. Led by a servant at the door, we entered through a side door. Coming in, we saw over 100 people already waiting in the main hall. Soon it was our batch's turn. The middle-aged man very fawningly presented a gift to a man named Manager Zhao. After accepting the gift, Manager Zhao praised the middle-aged man named Sun Zhang. "Not bad. Your Tianbao Tower knows how to behave." Just like that, the group was arranged for household registration one after another. Before long, it was my turn. After reporting my name, I was asked to drip blood on a spirit talisman. This is your proof of identity. Receiving work on the island, distributing grain, and responding to inspections all require showing this proof. You absolutely must not lose it. Sun Zhang on the side was a bit puzzled. Why was Manager Zhao so friendly to this guy, named Li Fan, actually explaining so carefully? After settling everyone's proof, Sun Zhang looked at Su Changyu. "The contract can be signed now, right?" Su Changyu took out a piece of paper. He bit his finger and wrote his name in blood. The paper then slowly dissipated before their eyes. Su Changyu stated, "As per the 3 terms, and it ends. In the future, when we have completely settled down, I will sign the final contract as agreed." Sun Zhang patted his head. "Dealing with you people from the Li world is just troublesome. If not for the sake of that immortal master, my Tianbao Tower wouldn't do this loss-making business." Then Sun Zhang spoke of the benefits of becoming a Leoli Island resident. You can use the spirit talisman proof to receive a dwelling. In addition, for the first year of registration, you can receive a certain amount of grain for free every month. And Su Changyu asked the question I wanted to know most. That is, how can one begin cultivation? Sun Zhang stated, "You banished mortals have a miasma concentration in your bodies far exceeding normal people. If you want to cultivate, you must dispel the miasma in your bodies first." Su Changyu asked the key question again. "Then how does one dispel it?" "There are many ways. Among them, the island's body purifying spirit pool works. Just soaking for a day and a night can completely dispel it. Unfortunately, the materials required to open the spirit pool are astonishing. It can only be opened once every 3 years. The last time was a year ago, which means there's a 2-year wait. But it's useless even if it opens. The competition for these spots is fierce. How could you outsiders possibly compete with the island's residents?" Su Changyu continued to ask, "What about other methods?" Sun Zhang said, "The second method is to practice the black-yellow heart-clearing mantra combined with specific medicinal diets. It takes 5 or 6 years to remove it. Although it takes a long time, the advantage is that it's stable and doesn't require much cost. The heart-clearing mantra and corresponding pills can be bought at pharmacies." But Su Changyu didn't seem satisfied. He wanted to know if there were faster ways. Mentioning the third method, Sun Zhang's face grew a bit grave. That is to go be a test subject. Hearing this, Su Changyu voiced his confusion. "What does test subject mean?" Sun Zhang explained, "Some immortal masters are very interested in miasma. Every year, they select mortal volunteers to act as test subjects, using special means to extract the miasma from their bodies. It only takes a few months to finish extracting. However, this process is extremely painful. You could say you can't live, can't die. Basically, most people go completely mad from the torture before the miasma is fully extracted." Su Changyu was very unwilling to hear this. He wanted to know if there were other methods. Sun Zhang then spoke of the fourth method. "Immortal masters don't produce offspring with cultivation aptitude 100 of the time either. their direct mortal descendants can use heavenly treasures to reshape their bodies. Not only do they not have to worry about miasma troubles, but they can also directly improve their cultivation aptitude. But this background isn't something you or I can enjoy. Even our Lioli Island master doesn't have this treatment. Anyway, the methods I know are these. If you really want to cultivate, consider it carefully. Before leaving, Sun Zhong kindly advised, I know you banished people all have hearts seeking the Tao, but who wasn't like that in the beginning? The immortal path is too difficult. Even if you can dispel the body's miasma and start cultivating, how many can successfully cultivate? Rather than seeking trouble for yourselves, why not be immortal and enjoy the life you have now? Hearing this, Su Changyu clenched his hands tight, having gone through untold hardships to smuggle himself out of the desperate land. How could he be willing to be immortal? Afterwards, everyone dispersed. I took the proof to receive my dwelling. Soon, I was assigned to the residential area in the northern part of the island. There were densely packed houses here. Most only had one room. After arriving inside the assigned house, I saw there was only simple bedding and a small table and chair. But for me, it wasn't a big problem. Being able to settle down so smoothly was good enough. It could be considered thanks to the Li World group. It's a pity that in this group, except for Su Changyu who has a heart for the Tao, the others don't seem to care about cultivation. All mediocre people, hard to achieve greatness. The next goal is to dispel the miasma in the body. Although the spots to enter the body purifying spirit pool are precious, I should be able to buy a spot if I take out the gold, silver, and jewels I looted. It's just too conspicuous. Being unfamiliar with the place and people, I still have to plan carefully first. Just then, a knock sounded on the door. I alertly took out a weapon from the flying boat. Then I opened the door to look, and it was actually that fat man from the Li World. He didn't hide anything. Speaking directly, "You aren't a person from our Li World, are you?" I put on a confused tone. "What are you saying?" But the fat man wasn't fooled. "Who exactly are you? And what purpose do you have sneaking into Lioli Island?" Hearing this, my expression became unfriendly. "How did you see through it?" The fat man explained. "When falling into the water, I saw your figure darting out from under the water. At first, I thought it was a hallucination. But later, when I thought back carefully, I realized that when the team set off, there was no such person as you." Hearing this, I praise him aloud. "You are actually somewhat shrewd and meticulous." After being praised, the fat man looked smugged out of course. Other than me, that bunch of idiots actually didn't notice a stranger had mixed in. Hearing that only he discovered it, I slowly walked behind the fat and oh, you're saying, besides you, no one else found out, right? After getting the fat man's proud confirmation again, I unhesitatingly took the dagger I had prepared long ago and fiercely pierced his body. Truly a clueless idiot, using a little cleverness to try and threaten me. Subsequently, I stored his corpse inside the tie-in boat. I also wiped away the bloodstains and traces. As for whether immortal means to investigate, I wasn't too worried. Firstly, the people from the Li World also had smuggled identities. Whether it was the cultivator masking their identities or Sun Jiang's Tianbao Tower, they were all cautious upon cautious, terrified of being discovered. Obviously, the identity of mortals from the banished land absolutely cannot see the light of day. How could they go investigate a useless person with great fanfare? Even if they knew the fat man came to me last, as long as the corpse isn't found, I just have to insist firmly that I haven't seen him. And it was about as I expected. Several days passed. Aside from Su Changyu coming alone to ask once, the fat man's disappearance didn't cause much of a ripple. In the time that followed, I inquired about various affairs on the island, while planning how to legitimately take out the gold, silver, and treasures for use. Gradually, I gained a general understanding of Lioli Island. The sea area we are in is called the Tsongyun Sea. There are tens of thousands of islands scattered about. Lioli Island is considered medium scale. It is named because the waters around the island abound with delicious Lioli fish. This fish is very popular among mortals. Some pills refined by immortal masters also use the Lioli pearls occasionally born in their bodies. So the immortal masters guarding Lioli Island collect a certain amount of Lioli pearls every year. This leads to the most popular job on Lioli Island being going out to sea to catch Lioli fish. Although one must turn in 7 parts and can only keep 3 parts. there's still many fleets going out to sea, because besides gaining from fishing, they sometimes find sunken ships with treasures in the sea. And the rules for found treasures are the same as fishing. Turn in 7 parts. The remaining 3 parts are your own. So as long as I can obtain a quota issued by the Liuli residents, going out to sea alone would allow me to launder the treasures inside the tie-in boat through the pretext of sunken ship treasures. And this quota to go to sea is the key. Through my understanding these days, the Liuli Island Master has 3 trusted aides. Manager Zhao is in charge of personnel. Manager Zhou is in charge of security. The quotas for going to sea are mostly in Manager Qian's hands. The other 2 managers have always wanted to intervene, but Manager Qian controls it tightly. They're only allocated 1 or 2 fleet quotas. Among them, I've only met Manager Zhao. Speaking of which, when registering that day, for some reason his attitude towards me seemed very different. Perhaps I can go meet this Manager Zhao, but going directly to meet him with my status is definitely impossible. So I went to Tianbao Tower first, preparing to find Sun Zhang for an introduction. But I was shut out. The men in black seemed to know who I was. Without a word, they directly drove me away. I was a bit confused. This Tianbao Tower is supposedly open for business. There's no logic in driving away customers. And they didn't even announce me. Could it be that something happened to the group from the Li world, causing Sun Zhang to turn hostile? I hurriedly found the people from the Li world to ask what the situation was. After some asking around, I learned. So Su Changyu decided to take the 3rd method to remove the miasma, which was to become an experimental subject. Before leaving, he had already fulfilled his contract with Tianbao Tower. So Tianbao Tower no longer had any ties with their group. That makes sense. I just didn't expect Su Changyu to be so decisive. Su Changyu's friend explained why he was in such a hurry. It turned out Su Changyu had a terminally ill sister. He chose to risk his life to save her. Although I no longer had the contract from Su Changyu's side to help, I didn't plan to give up on the Sun Zhang route. After all, he was able to comfort Su Changyu before he left that day. At the very least, he isn't a purely evil person. Compared to strangers, I prefer dealing with people whose background I know a little about. Later, I went to Tianbao Tower again. When the guard saw me, he cursed loudly. "Why are you here again? Are you looking for death?" Seeing this, I directly shouted, "I am here to do business with Tianbao Tower. Is this how you treat your guests?" This scene attracted the attention of the people around. The guard panicked a little. After going back to ask for instructions, he led me to a guest room. After drinking the tea brought by the maid, I couldn't help but exclaim, "Good tea." At this moment, Sun Zhang finally appeared. This Dayu Flame Dragon tea is a specialty of the area around Dayu Island. Now that the island has been destroyed, it has basically become a rarity. Then it seems I am benefiting from Elder Sun's generosity. Sun Zhang said unceremoniously, "Since the matter with Great Li is over, why have you come to find me again?" I told him not to worry. I am indeed here to do business. It has nothing to do with the immortal severed land. Hearing this, Sun Zhang scoffed, "You? A mortal who has just arrived. What business can you have?" I didn't say anything, just gave him a look. After thinking about it, Sun Zhang decided to sit down and chat. "Speak, what business?" I went straight to the point. "I wonder if your Tianbao Tower is interested in a slot for the seafaring fleet?" Sun Zhang expressed that they naturally were. Not to mention salvaging sunken treasures. Just catching lioli fish and other marine specialties is enough to make a huge profit. But the slots are firmly controlled by Manager Qian, let alone my Tianbao Tower. Even Manager Zhao only gets 1 or 2 slots. What makes you think you have the ability to aim for a slot? I told Sun Zhang, as long as you let me meet Manager Zhao, I have my own way to get a slot. Looking at that determined gaze, Sun Zhang was a bit hesitant. Just then, a female voice rang out. Let him meet him. It's not a difficult thing anyway. It turned out to be the female shopkeeper of Tianbao Tower. She spoke very scary words in a flat tone. If he can't do it, just chop him up and feed him to the fish. Hearing this, I showed no fear and politely thanked her for her help. Seeing this, the female shopkeeper was very curious. Where exactly does your confidence come from? I didn't say what method, just promised her. I have always kept my word. A promise is worth 1,000 gold. Also, according to the rules, if there's a harvest from the voyage, I personally get 30%. I don't want a single cent of this 30%. When the time comes, half goes to Manager Zhao and half to Tianbao Tower. The female shopkeeper was even more puzzled. Then what do you want after going through all this trouble? I then stated my purpose. I want a slot for the body purifying spirit pool that opens once every 3 years. The female shopkeeper and Sun Zhang were astonished upon hearing this. But then the female shopkeeper laughed out loud. Oh, uncle, you're already quite old, yet you still want to learn to cultivate? I didn't mind her laughter, just said plainly, I only seek immortality. I will have no regrets, even if I die trying. As soon as these words came out, the female shopkeeper was stunned. Perhaps feeling my firm heart toward the Tao, she put away her casual manner and solemnly stated, I agree to this matter. Update. In order to get a chance to meet Manager Zhao, I found Tianbao Tower to cooperate. After discussing the cooperation and profit sharing with the female shopkeeper, she said she would send someone to notify me once the meeting date with Manager Zhao was set. I left my address with her and didn't stay long. After seeing me leave, Sun Zhang suddenly spoke. Shopkeeper, isn't giving a spirit pool slot a loss? The female shopkeeper smiled. Although the spirit pool slot is important, if this guy can really win a fleet slot, it's a guaranteed long-term profit for us. Besides, this guy isn't an ordinary person. Just seeing his eyes, I was a little scared. On the other side, after leaving Tianbao Tower, I stopped by a pharmacy to buy the Xianhuang cleansing heart mantra and the corresponding medicinal herbs. After all, even if the negotiation with Manager Zhao goes smoothly, the spirit pool won't open for another 2 years. In the meantime, I can try the cleansing effect of the cleansing heart mantra first. In the following days, I practiced the cleansing heart mantra at home while waiting for Tianbao Tower's notification. However, before I could meet Manager Zhao, I heard shocking news first. That Su Changyu, who went to be an experimental subject, died. His death was extremely miserable. His whole body was reduced to a twisted mass of flesh. That flesh would twitch inexplicably, making one's scalp tingle just looking at it. The group from the immortal severed land didn't have money prepared like I did. They originally planned a sea burial, but because I had some appreciation for Su Changyu, I sent them some money to let him be buried in the earth. On the day of the burial, Su Changyu's close friend, Xiao Heng, was in great pain. With my mindset from so many years, although it was my first time seeing such a miserable death, I didn't feel too much. I just felt a little lament. During the few days of contact with Su Changyu, I could see that his will was firm. He was considered a decent talent. I thought that among the group from the immortal severed land, he would be the one to make a name for himself. I didn't expect him to be gone before he could even remove the miasma. Is this the difficulty of pursuing the immortal path? After this incident, and after practicing the cleansing heart mantra for another month, my feeling about the difficulty of the immortal path became even more profound. Ordinary people usually see obvious effects like better spirits and faster thinking after cultivating the cleansing heart mantra for half a month. But a month has passed for me, and there is still no change. It seems I'm not some peerless genius. However, I wasn't too anxious. I just treated it as daily homework. Just like that, another half a month passed. Finally, Tianbao Tower sent someone to notify me. Following the messenger, I met Manager Zhao in a courtyard of Tianbao Tower. Manager Zhao didn't waste words. He said directly, "Is it you who want to seek a fleet slot? Your appetite is not small. But what backing do you have?" I replied with a smile, "The fleet goes to sea just for profit." I wonder how Manager Zhao compares the harvest of catching lily fish to the treasures of sunken ships. Manager Zhao indicated that sunken ship treasures naturally yield higher returns, but sunken ships aren't encountered on every voyage. Even having been on the island for over 10 years, I've only seen sunken ship treasures yield a large harvest a few times. I told him, as long as you can give me command of a fleet, I can guarantee to bring back a certain amount of sunken treasure every time we go to sea. Hearing this, Manager Zhao's eyes instantly turned red. After a moment, he spoke, "You actually aren't lying." Hearing his words, I was a little surprised. I indeed wasn't lying, but I wondered how Manager Zhao could tell. Manager Zhao then explained his ability. It turned out he was born with a pair of strange eyes that could identify capable people and distinguish truth from falsehood. He had just seen a white light radiating from me, proving that my words were true and I had no ill intentions. I was a bit astonished. I didn't expect such a strange art to exist. S.O. on the day of household registration, Manager Zhao, "Did you see something different about me using this?" It was nothing much. I just saw that you were extraordinarily wealthy that day, and your hands were stained with a lot of blood. Obviously, you weren't an ordinary person, so I was just polite to you to form a good karma. Then I thought about the immortal severed land and my identity as an exiled mortal. Then Manager Zhao, you know about that too? Manager Zhao heard this and disapproved. With the immortal master guarding the island, no matter what your identity is, as long as you behave yourself, nothing will happen to you. Besides, taking in refugees is also the immortal master's order. So regardless of whether you're real or fake, as long as you're refugees in name, it's fine. Hearing this, I felt relieved that I in that case. I wonder if Manager Zhao can cooperate? Manager Zhao stated, even if we cooperate, it's impossible to give you the position of commander. You are a newcomer with no foundation. If I rashly hand the fleet over to you, it will definitely cause dissatisfaction among many. But I can let you follow the fleet first. As long as you prove that you can salvage sunken treasure every time, it won't take long for the crew to be convinced. At that time, it won't be a problem for you to take over the fleet. I knew this was the best solution at the moment, so I agreed decisively. On the other side, after learning that I had persuaded Manager Zhao, the female shopkeeper was astonished. Are you sure you didn't get it wrong? Sun Jiang said, that's right. So that uncle really wasn't boasting. He really is confident in securing a fleet. Sun Jiang also felt it was very strange. He couldn't figure out where a stowaway who just arrived got his confidence. After thinking it over, the female shopkeeper decided to send the deed to the property on East Street as a gesture of goodwill. Hearing this, Sun Jiang advised, is it a bit too hasty? That was what we prepared to bribe Manager Qian with. How can we let that guy have it so cheaply? The female shopkeeper said impatiently, just go when I tell you to. If the day really comes when he successfully controls the fleet, a small courtyard won't be enough to befriend him. Update. After seeing that I had reached a cooperation agreement with Manager Zhao, Tianbao Tower, in order to befriend me, directly gave me the small courtyard on East Street that they had acquired at a high price. I didn't stand on ceremony either and moved into the new house that very day. After settling in, Tianbao Tower sent several beautiful maids. But as a man solely dedicated to pursuing the immortal path, I naturally declined. After that, it was waiting for the fleet to set sail. I thought I wouldn't have to wait too long, but unexpectedly, a natural disaster arrived suddenly. It was the Great Wind disaster that all the major islands feared. Fortunately, the guarding immortal master quickly activated the protective formation. Seeing this, the islanders bowed and gave thanks one after another. I looked with interest at the blue light flowing through the formation. The faintly appearing characters looked very mysterious. The whistling sound that was rampant just a moment ago was now completely isolated by the formation. Is this the immortal method I have been pursuing? Just as I was sighing with emotion, a shocking bolt of giant thunder struck down towards the formation. The shockwave from the impact instantly knocked me to my knees, and I couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of old blood. I thought the heavenly thunder would stop there, but when I looked up, I found that the heavenly thunder hadn't dissipated yet. It kept striking the island-protecting formation. Just as I was waiting for this reincarnation to end, I saw that although the heavenly thunder came with menacing momentum, no matter how many times it struck, it didn't break the formation. Just like that, after an unknown amount of time, as the wind disaster and big waves slowly calmed down, the heavenly thunder began to dissipate. It wasn't until several more days passed that the wind disaster completely retreated. Afterwards, I heard from the islanders that the scale of this one was considered small. It turned out that 15 years ago, Lili Island had encountered one with several times the power. At that time, the formation was forced to shrink its protective range to barely block it. After that wind disaster, Lili Island's area was left with only 1/3. It only recovered a lot of vitality in the last 2 years. Experiencing it for the first time, I realized why the islanders feared the wind disaster. The might of heaven and earth is truly terrifying. Afterwards, Lili Mansion distributed spirit talismans to all residents. They needed to investigate whether there was any damage to the island protecting formation. Every household had to hang the spirit talisman inside the house for several days and observe if it emitted red light. The formation has a total of 367,800 nodes. They have to ensure that every node has no abnormalities. Therefore, all affairs on Liuli Island were temporarily suspended to prioritize the maintenance of the island protecting formation. In the past, the Immortal Master coordinated the inspection of the formation. But this time, the spirit stones maintaining the formation's operation were almost consumed. The guarding Immortal Master could only return to Wansien Island first to get spirit stones. The formation self-check takes 360 flashes of the spirit talisman as a small cycle and 360 small cycles as a large cycle. As long as no red light appears within a large cycle, it means the formation is fine. When I learned that this formation was so massive yet precise, it was hard to imagine how it was built. Time flew by, and another 5 days passed. The result that made all the residents sigh in relief came out. The formation did not have any damage. And with the return of the guarding Immortal Master, life on Liuli Island gradually returned to normal. In the days that followed, refugees from other islands would come ashore from time to time. After all, not all islands could survive a natural disaster. Only those islands with special resources would have an Immortal Master guarding them. A few survivors from some islands would come to take refuge. During these few months, while waiting for the fleet to set sail, I continued to cultivate the Xian Wang cleansing heart mantra. Then I found it was useful. Both my physical age limit and psychological age limit increased slightly. Although not much, it gave me motivation. Not long after, Manager Zhao finally sent someone to notify me that the fleet was about to set sail. 3 days later, I saw that Sung Yuan, which I was to accompany. As soon as I boarded the ship, I heard the complaints of the crew. It turned out that the island master had temporarily set up an assessment task this time. Among all the fleets going to sea, the one with the least harvest would be deemed unqualified, and their future qualification to go to sea would be canceled. The reason for such pressure was Coral Island in the south. Their formation didn't survive the wind disaster, and the entire island was razed to the ground. Therefore, the quota of materials Coral Island was supposed to turn and fell on Liuli Island's head. At this time, the leader of the fleet, Zhang Haobo, appeared. Look at you, cowardly lot. Why don't you think about the bright side? Doesn't the first place get a reward? The share of the harvest is increased from 30% to 50%. A crew member said helplessly, "Boss, stop dreaming. It's not like you don't know our fishing skills. Which time did we not barely complete the fishing task? I think this will be our ship's last voyage." At this moment, Zhang Haobo smiled slightly. "Don't worry. We have a capable person helping us this time, guaranteed to make us return with a full load." After speaking, he pointed his finger at me, standing to the side. I looked at him in surprise. Update. After experiencing the wind disaster, I finally waited for the chance to go to sea. Facing Captain Zhang Haobo's deliberate provocation, my arrival instantly caused arguments among the crew. They thought that I, an old man who was completely clean and fair-skinned, didn't look like a capable person at all. Seeing this, Zhang Haobo added fuel to the fire. "You all be polite to me. This is a great talent specially invited by Manager Zhao. He will take over this ship soon." He even emphasized the words "great talent" very heavily. I knew this was a display of authority to intimidate me. Sure enough, the crew members who had been with Zhang Haobo for many years were unhappy. "Boss, you've been the captain for 10 years. How can you just give it up? We'll be the first to disagree with driving you away." Seeing their angry looks, they were probably thinking of throwing me, an outsider, into the sea to feed the fish once we set sail. Seeing this, Zhang Haobo smiled smugly. Then he stood out again to continue fanning the flames. Everyone calmed down. Although everyone thinks highly of me, Zhang Haobo, that Sung Yuan is Manager Zhao's property after all. We're just selling our lives. Now that Manager Zhao wants to change people, we have nothing to say. I watched his performance silently, scoffing in my heart. Just a petty trick. After he finished performing, I also spoke loudly. "Gentlemen, if you don't trust me, do you think Manager Zhao has poor judgment? Since I promised Manager Zhao that I can find treasure every time, I definitely won't let everyone down." Hearing me bring up Manager Zhao, the crew calmed down. After all, they had all heard of Manager Zhao's strange eyes. It seemed he had indeed never misjudged anyone. Perhaps this guy really had some skill. Seeing the situation about to be brought back under control, Zhang Haobo was unhappy. He pointed directly at me and shouted angrily, "What fine treasure, every time." Words like that are obviously to trick children. You definitely use connections to try and snatch the captain's position. Since you are so confident, then let's wait and see. We'll know if you're a mule or a horse when we take you out for a walk. Immediately, without saying another word, he commanded that Sung Yin to set sail. that Sun Yuan works on a principle similar to a flying boat. It doesn't need wind or manpower. It relies on a set of small formations driven by spirit stones. And on top, it is equipped with a spirit guide essential for all ships going to sea. Only this kind of spirit guide issued by Liuli Mansion can detect the location of Liuli fish schools. However, the sensing range is limited, so the crew's role comes in. They first find the approximate area where the fish schools appear, then use the spirit guide to locate them. Only this time, after the wind disaster raged, many locations of the Liuli fish schools have shifted. It basically relies on luck, and at Sun Yuan's, luck wasn't very good. After sailing for more than half a month, they still hadn't found a trace of the Liuli fish schools. The crew and Zhang Haobo began to get anxious. After all, there is a punishment for the last place this time. There was only half a month left until the return date. If they didn't catch something big soon, they were done for. And I, who had stayed in my room for half a month, also walked out on this day. Seeing this, Zhang Haobo mocked. If we didn't send you food every day, we would have thought you died in there. I couldn't be bothered to waste words with him. I just asked for a small boat, indicating that I had sensed treasure. As soon as these words came out, Zhang Haobo and the crew exclaimed in surprise, having expressions of disbelief. Especially Zhang Haobo, who thought I was joking with him. I knew that saying more wasn't as good as seeing it for real. I told him to prepare the small boat quickly. The glow of the treasure is gradually becoming dim. I'm about to lose its location. Zhang Haobo saw that I didn't look like I was lying. He didn't dare to gamble on whether it was true or false, so he asked the crew to prepare the boat quickly. After getting on the small boat, I instructed them not to follow yet. Wait until I confirm the location and give a signal. Watching my back as I sailed away alone, some crew members worried if I was running away. Zhang Haobo wasn't panicked at all. After all, the sea is vast. Where could this small boat run to? Just like that, after waiting for 2.5 hours, they finally saw the signal flare I fired. When they drove the ship to me, I pointed to the sea area below, indicating that the treasure was right here. Zhang Haobo immediately ordered the crew to go into the water and cast the nets. Before long, chests of gold, silver, and jewelry were salvaged. Zhang Haobo counted them in disbelief. A total of 16 chests. He was dumbfounded on the spot, not knowing what to say. He didn't expect this guy to really have the ability. He suddenly thought of Manager Zhao's eyes that were different from ordinary people and grouped me and Manager Zhao into the same category of people. After figuring it out, Zhang Haobo was incredibly regretful. Clearly, this was a rare, noble person he had encountered. Not only did he not grasp the opportunity, but he actually had the nerve to mock him. Thinking about it now, he was the laughable one. Update, update. After seeing that I could really find treasure, Zhang Haobo didn't dare to be presumptuous anymore. He apologized to me very sincerely. I knew he didn't have any malicious intent, so the matter passed just like that. With these dozen or so chests of gold, silver, and jewelry, the Tsungen no longer needed to fish on this voyage. They turned around directly and returned to Liuli Island. When approaching the dock, Zhang Haobo signaled not to dock yet. He immediately ordered crew member Lu San to go into the water and ashore first to notify manager Zhao to bring people personally to count the treasure. After all, barring any accidents, their Tsungyuan fleet would have the most harvest from this voyage. According to the reward for first place, they could get 50%. If outsiders were allowed to count it, he wouldn't be at ease. Just like that, after waiting for a period of time, Zhang Haobo let the Tsungyuan dock. When the personnel for the routine inspection wanted to go up, he led the crew to block them. The minor leader of the inspection team didn't know they had a big harvest and thought Zhang Haobo had returned empty-handed again. He immediately mocked. Looks like your time as captain has come to an end. The crew members were unhappy upon hearing this and almost went down to fight them. Seeing this, Zhang Haobo signaled the crew to be steady and not to argue so much with these people. Behind him, seeing this scene, I thought that Zhang Haobo being able to sit firmly in the captain's position wasn't without reason. Before long, we finally waited for manager Zhao to bring people. With a backer present, Zhang Haobo naturally relaxed. He openly moved the gold and silver treasures onto the dock. Instantly, it caused a sensation among those present and even spread throughout the entire Liuli Island. At Tianbao Tower, Sun Zhong also excitedly came to report to the female shopkeeper, stating that the Tsungyuan really found over a dozen chests of treasure. At first, the female shopkeeper didn't hear clearly. She just thought it was merely treasure. Anyway, it would all be digested through Tianbao Tower's channels. But only after thinking carefully did she notice that it seemed to be the Tsangyin where Li Fan was. Immediately, she had a shocked expression. Are you sure you didn't get it wrong? Is it that, uncle? Sun Zhang said, that's right. It's the ship the guy's on. No wonder he could persuade Manager Zhao. He really has the ability to find treasure. Speaking of which, this ability is the same as our head shopkeepers. The female shopkeeper also realized Li Fan's importance at this time, so she immediately asked Sun Zhang to contact the other party and find a time to invite him out for a meal. And she would once again gift Li Fan a courtyard named Listening to Gloom Tower. After Sun Zhang took the order and left, the female shopkeeper wondered in her heart, could this Li Fan have a psychic treasure body? After all, the ability of the psychic treasure body is to sense rare treasures within a certain range. And the head shopkeeper of Tianbao Tower, her sister Yin Yuding, possessed this precious body. It was precisely by relying on this heaven-defying ability that her sister could, in those 10-plus years, build the Tianbao Tower Chamber of Commerce spanning the Zongyun Sea from nothing. So if that uncle really possesses this constitution, his importance goes without saying. On the other side, in Manager Zhao's mansion, he was also praising me as indeed a capable person. To fish up 16 chests of treasure on the first voyage. Only I knew clearly in my heart where my treasure hunting ability came from. It was all relying on the treasures already stored in the Taiyin boat. I knew this kind of thing definitely couldn't fool people for long. After all, there will be a day when it runs out. So I modestly told Manager Zhao, the harvest this time is indeed quite a lot, but I'm afraid it will be hard to have this much in the future. Manager Zhao stroked his beard and expressed understanding. How could there be this much every time? But just the harvest from this time is enough for me to operate a separate fleet for you. Afterwards, speaking of the body-purifying spirit pool, Manager Zhao also learned that I was seeking this slot and wanted to know why. I told him, even if a mortal has inexhaustible wealth, after 100 years, they will still turn into a pile of yellow earth. Only by seeking immortality and proving the Tao is the trip to this world not wasted. Manager Zhao sighed. For you to still have such a heart for pursuing immortality at this age is truly commendable. I'm not as good as you. Actually, more than 10 years ago, when I was your age, I saved an immortal master by chance. At that time, he asked me if I wanted to follow him to cultivate, but I refused because I was old and had no potential. Thinking about it now, I regret it endlessly. It's a pity there is no medicine for regret in this world. Speaking of which, among the hundreds of thousands of mortals on Liuli Island, there really aren't many as determined as you. I'm modestly expressed. You overpraise me. Then I wanted to ask him if he had any connections, but Manager Zhao said he was powerless because the opening of the spirit pool is presided over by the guarding Immortal Master. The slots are also decided by him. 1 year before the opening, the Immortal Master will announce the required materials. For example, needing 30,000 Liuli beads. Whichever faction collects the most will occupy the most slots. Of course, you don't need to worry too much. I know you have a cooperation with Tianbao Tower. Tianbao Tower has branches on basically every island in the Zongyun Sea. In terms of collection ability, really few factions can compare. Hearing this, I thought of that female shopkeeper. It seems this Tianbao Tower is a very important link. After returning to the courtyard from Manager Zhao's mansion, Sun Zhang came to the door. He offered the deed to Listening to Gloom Tower with both hands and mentioned that the female shopkeeper wanted to see me. I agreed to the meeting, but I didn't accept the deed. Afterwards, following Sun Zhang to the meeting place, as soon as I entered, I saw the female shopkeeper had already taken off her veil. Then she formally introduced herself, Liuli Island Tianbao Tower Shopkeeper, Yin Yuzhen. I also politely replied, Li Fan. Yin Yuzhen chuckled. Uncle, you really are concise. I told her, I'm just a mortal, nothing much to introduce. Yin Yuzhen thought I was still pretending, so she directly mentioned the matter of the psychic treasure body. Could be not worth mentioning to you, uncle. I asked her suspiciously, what psychic treasure body? I don't know, Yin Yuzhen said. Then, uncle, how were you able to accurately find the location of the treasure in the vast ocean? I naturally couldn't tell her I was bluffing, so I casually made up an excuse about having a feeling in my heart. Hearing this, Yin Yuzhen pouted unhappily. She secretly thought, still saying you aren't a psychic treasure body. This ability is exactly the same. But as we chatted more, Yuzhen discovered that I seemed to genuinely not know about the psychic treasure body. So she told me about her sister's psychic treasure body ability. And after learning about this miraculous constitution, I also started having ideas about her sister. So I asked her how old her sister was, what she looked like where she was 20 years ago, and where she is now. Yuzhen was dumbfounded after hearing this. What is this? Are you checking my sister's household registration? Update, update. Seeing my inquiries about her sister that were like a census check, Yuzhen even thought I was her long-lost father. But after carefully observing my appearance, she found it didn't match. I helplessly told her, I'm purely curious. Yuzhen thought that maybe I felt I possessed the psychic treasure body like her sister, so I asked out of curiosity for a similar kind of person. Then she explained the background of herself and her sister. Originally, the two sisters were from Yilan Island in the north. Their parents died from a disaster when they were young. The two sisters could only rely on begging to survive. Just at some point, her sister became able to find various valuable things in different places. Because of this, they lived a good life and built up Tianbao Tower. However, Yuzhen hasn't seen her sister for a few years either. 3 years ago, her sister was spotted by a passing immortal master and taken away. At first, she could still receive letters from her sister reporting safety. But later, no more information came. I told her, isn't that good? Being taken by an immortal master means having a chance to cultivate. But Yuzhen expressed, if that were truly the case, it would naturally be good. It turned out that the letters her sister sent previously were mixed with code words, implying that her current situation was very dangerous. If there was no contact later, it meant she had met with misfortune. Hearing this, I associated it with her sister's psychic treasure body. If it really was that kind of treasure-finding ability she described, then it indeed might attract immortal masters. However, it was denied by Yuzhen, because what her sister could sense were only things useful to mortals. In the hands of immortal masters, such things were no different from scrap copper and rotten iron. After all, before that immortal master took her away, many immortal masters had already seen her sister's constitution, but none took it seriously. It's unknown why after that last immortal master took her away, her sister vanished without a trace. Although she knew it was likely ominous, Tianbao Tower's foundation was still there. She, the younger sister, could only brace herself and step up. However, without her sister's ability, Tianbao Tower's business got worse day by day. She even misjudged a few fake items later and lost a large sum. Now, the elders of Tianbao Tower were dissatisfied with her. They were already uniting with outsiders, trying to drive her away and carve up Tianbao Tower. But they didn't know her sister's situation, so they were still wary of that immortal master. Yuzhen used the excuse of expanding the market to come from Yilan Island to this Liuli Island to avoid the limelight. According to her idea, she would accumulate strength on Liuli Island for a few years, then go back to settle accounts with those elders. But with me, a so-called psychic treasure body, appearing in front of her, she naturally wanted to recruit me to revitalize Tianbao Tower with this. I told her, I'm not interested in these mortal affairs. I only yearn for cultivation. Also, regarding what you agreed to before, after I get the fleet slot, you have to help me get the body-purifying spirit pool slot. You haven't gone back on this matter, right? Yuzhen smiled confidently. Our Tianbao Tower always puts integrity first in business. We will definitely do what we promised. However, Uncle, so what if you can enter the spirit pool? Removing the miasma in the body is not a simple matter. Only half of the people who enter the spirit pool each year succeed. The older you are, the harder it is. So, Uncle, are you sure you have confidence? Each person only has one chance to enter the spirit pool in their life. I told her, even if there is only a 50% success rate, it is enough for me to try. But listening to you, it seems there is a way to increase the success rate. Yuzhen indicated that was correct. In the last letter her sister sent, there was a dust-leaving pill. According to the letter, as long as this pill is taken, the probability of removing miasma will increase greatly. Coupled with the body-purifying spirit pool, even at your age, Uncle, success is very likely. I asked her why she didn't use it herself. Yuzhen said, not everyone is like you. Uncle, obsessed with cultivation. My wish is to protect the Tianbao Tower left by my sister. Everyone has their own aspirations. That is a valid reason. Yin Yuzhen said joyfully, "Uncle, does this mean you agree to help me?" I told her, "Give me 3 days to consider first." Afterwards, I asked around about the dust-leaving pill. After confirming she wasn't lying, I agreed to Yin Yuzhen's request. Before the spirit pool opens, I need to help Tianbao Tower collect a certain amount of rare treasures periodically. The remuneration is to hand over the dust-leaving pill to me after the spirit pool opens. To show sincerity, Yin Yuzhen gifted the deed to listening to Gloom Tower to me again. Since both parties had an agreement this time, I accepted it unceremoniously. In the following year, I first completed 3 official voyages for Liuli Island. Each time, I brought back a few chests of treasure, shocking the whole island while winning a fleet slot. I also helped the Tianbao Tower fleet harvest a lot. It almost equaled the sum of their profits from the previous 5 years. It can be said that everyone in Tianbao Tower held me in awe. Of course, I didn't give up on the cultivation of the Xianhuang cleansing heart mantra. The benefit was that the charging progress of returning to truth accelerated. Previously, returning to truth, charging progress only grew naturally with the passage of time. It reached 100 every 20 years. Afterwards, it would slowly rise to a cap of 200 and stop. Normally, the charging progress is 6 to 7 a year. Now, the charging progress of returning to truth has reached 15 a year. It can be said to have doubled in speed. Bound items, Thousand Mechanism, Jade, Ruler Golden Intent, Tie-In Boat, all have been growing continuously. This cleansing heart mantra might be a god-tier technique for me. Time flew by, and only 1 year remained until the spirit pool opened. On this day, the guarding immortal master also announced the materials that needed to be collected. Update. The materials required for the spirit pool were finally announced. Tianbao Tower could satisfy most of the materials on the list. Only the Star Sea quicksand among them was something even they hadn't heard of. It seems the difficulty lies in this Star Sea quicksand. Yin Yuzhen said she would have to ask around with the people from the Wanhua Chamber of Commerce. It's just that the people from the Wanhua Chamber of Commerce are very greedy. I'm afraid it will cost a fortune. I told them that no matter what, I must get the Star Sea quicksand. I am determined to get the quota for the spirit pool. Listening to Sun Zhang and the others' explanation, this Wanhua Chamber of Commerce is not a local chamber of the Tsungyan Sea. Instead, it is from a continent an unknown distance away. It is said that they have the support of immortal masters behind them, which is why they can easily cross the endless seas and come to this remote Liuli Island to do business. In 3 months, a representative of the Wanhua Chamber of Commerce will pass by the Tsungyan Sea. We can contact that person then. But I knew I couldn't place all my hopes on the Wanhua Chamber of Commerce. Recently, Liuli Island has also taken in many refugees from other islands. Perhaps I could ask them about this item. As the materials required for the spirit pool were made public, the residents learned that all the factions were looking for Star Sea quicksand. Among them, Xiao Heng, who came from the departed world, suddenly found me that I heard, "Brother, that you're looking for Star Sea quicksand recently." I told him that was correct, oh, you happen to know of this item? Xiao Heng then stated that when the immortal masters descended upon their great Li, they promised that if they gathered the required materials, they could bring a group of people to the world of cultivation. Star Sea quicksand was among them. I pretended to be puzzled and asked him, as a person of great Li, why haven't I heard of it? Xiao Heng explained awkwardly that when the announcement was made to the world, several items had already been removed from the list. They were allocated to the major noble families as internal quotas. The Star Sea quicksand was assigned to his Jinan prince's mansion to collect. Since the other party knew the source of the material, I didn't waste any more words. I asked him to state his conditions. Xiao Heng said, "Brother, you helped me bury Suchang back then. I should have repaid you unconditionally. But having been accustomed to a wealthy life, I really find it hard to survive on Liuli Island. So, I hope you could take me out of the slums, brother." Hearing this, I agreed very generously. As long as you can provide clues, I will agree to any request. Seeing this, Xiao Heng also revealed the origin of the Star Sea quicksand. Actually, it wasn't anything rare. In the terms of mortals, it is what is known as heavenly meteorite iron. Only then did I suddenly realize. No wonder I had never heard of this material. It turned out the name was different, but it probably wasn't that simple. Xiao Hong explained that it still needed to be processed. First, one must find a meteorite with an intact appearance. Secondly, the overall weight of a single meteorite must be at least 50 caddies. Afterwards, I quietly listened to him describe the production process. After getting what I wanted, I asked Xiao Hong what he needed. Xiao Hong said with some embarrassment, "I just want a decent courtyard and a somewhat easier job. Of course, it would be even better if there were a few servants." I laughed out loud upon hearing this, that all the requirements a dignified prince of Jinan has. Why don't you add a little more? I still have some say in Tianbao Tower. Xiao Hong shook his head that I know my own capabilities. Having good food and shelter is enough. If I have a large amount of wealth, it will only attract hatred. Since that was the case, I didn't force him. Before leaving, I suddenly asked him, after going through untold hardships to come to the world of cultivation, "Do you not intend to try cultivating?" Xiao Hong stated very casually, "Not everyone is obsessed with cultivation. I get sleepy as soon as I read that cleansing heart mantra. Better to forget it." Afterwards, I found Yin Yuzhen and told her the situation regarding star C quicksand being made from meteorite iron. Of course, we would only know if it was true after testing it. It just so happened that the representative of the Wanhua Chamber of Commerce will be coming to Liuli Island soon. We might as well probe him for the truth. But we also had to purchase meteorite iron secretly first. Not many people knew about it now, but later it would be hard to say. Also, I told Sun Zhang to remember to mix in some other materials when purchasing to deceive others and confuse the public. Then, have people release fake news in the market. This way, it will be much safer. After listening, Yin Yuzhen said with some surprise, "Uncle, you really aren't simple. Come to think of it, I haven't asked you what you did before." Naturally, I didn't reveal my true identity. I just told her I taught people to read. Yin Yuzhen pouted upon hearing this. She didn't believe it at all. Before leaving, I told her that I had done what needed to be done. Unless there were special circumstances, she shouldn't disturb me. Also, handle Xiao Heng's conditions. Yin Yuzhen frowned when she heard this. How come even helping Xiao Hong with such a small matter is great luck? Could it be that my ability to seek luck and avoid bad omens has failed? It turned out that Yin Yuzhen also had an unknown ability, which was to perceive the luck and omens of events. Ever since she met Uncle, every task he assigned had a premonition of great luck. One must know that before this, Yin Yuzhen had never encountered great luck. This was also why she was willing to cooperate with Uncle. Later, under Yin Yuzhen's operation, the people on the island heard various fake news. For example, that star C quicksand was the kidney stone of the Liuli fish, and so on. Most factions thought it was fake news, but there were always people who thought, what if? So it led to panic buying. For a time, all kinds of materials on the market were sold out. Prices skyrocketed and chaos ensued. And I, as the instigator of it all, was just quietly cultivating the cleansing heart mantra in the courtyard of Tingyu Tower. Until 3 months later, Yin Yuzhen contacted the representative of the Wanhua Chamber of Commerce. On this day, I followed her on a small boat leaving Liuli Island, traveling north for dozens of miles to the agreed location. I saw a flying boat in the sky that had been waiting for a long time. Updated. Upon seeing the flying boat of the Wanhua Chamber of Commerce, Yin Yuzhen thought I would act like I had never seen the world before. But I had one myself, so naturally, I wouldn't be surprised by these methods of the immortals. Before long, a person came down from the flying boat. Representative Wu of the Wanhua Chamber of Commerce smiled and greeted Yin Yuzhen. "Shopkeeper Yin, long time no see. Counting the days, it's been 3 years, right? I wonder who this person beside you is." Yin Yuzhen introduced. "This is the newly hired elder of my Tianbao Tower." Representative Wu then politely greeted me. "First time meeting, a pleasure. Shopkeeper Yin, you'd better hurry into your boat to inspect the goods. It will probably be difficult to meet again in the future." Yin Yuzhen asked anxiously, "What do you mean by that? Has some accident happened?" Representative Wu stated that he wasn't clear on the details either. "Anyway, it's a notification from headquarters. All representatives in the Tsongyan Sea are to stop all business and return. If I hadn't agreed to this transaction with you, Shopkeeper Yin, I'm afraid I would be on my way back right now. So we can't delay any longer." Hearing this, Yin Yuzhen felt worried about the future of Tianbao Tower. Because Tianbao Tower could flourish on Liuli Island precisely because it had the backing of the Wanhua Wanhua Chamber of Commerce. Now that the Wanhua Chamber of Commerce was withdrawing from the Songyun Sea, Tianbao Tower's future business will be difficult. Also, why did her ability to seek luck and avoid bad omens have no reaction at all? Seeing Yin Yuzhen still in a daze, Representative Wu urged her. After coming to her senses, Yin Yuzhen said, "Let's go look now. As for the road ahead, we can only take it one step at a time." After walking into the cabin, I introduced the goods for this transaction to Representative Wu one by one. They were all treasures like various night-luminescent pearls, jade walls, and coral. Finally, I brought Representative Wu to 3 pieces of meteorite iron. I stated that these were 3 pieces of star sea quicksand. This move was to use his vision to see if they were real. When Representative Wu heard it was star sea quicksand, he excitedly picked one up to appraise it. Seeing him lift it so easily, I was also endlessly surprised. After all, even the lightest meteorite iron weighed several dozen caddies apiece. Before long, Representative Wu smiled and put down the meteorite iron. "Shopkeeper Yin, you have good luck. You actually collected such good items as star sea quicksand." Hearing this, Yin Yuzhen and I smiled at each other. The plan succeeded. It seems star sea quicksand really is meteorite iron. Then Xiao Hong didn't lie. Representative Wu was very satisfied with the goods provided by Tianbao Tower this time. Since he didn't know if there would be another chance to meet, he invited the 2 of us up to the flying boat as guests. Upon coming up, we saw a pile full of treasures. Representative Wu said not to stand on ceremony. These were all collected from various places in the Songyun Sea this time. If you 2 see something you like, you can buy it. Since they were all mortal treasures, I wasn't interested. However, Yin Yuzhen beside me had her eyes shining. She wanted to use her ability to seek luck and avoid bad omens to find good treasures. Just like that, I accompanied her to look through this pile of mortal treasures. At first, I still had a look of indifference. But it wasn't until I picked up a deep blue bead that I was shocked to discover it was actually a heaven and earth wonder, the vast ocean pearl. It could provide charging for returning to truth. I didn't expect to have such good luck with a casual pick. It was also a wonder currently in gestation. In order not to be discovered acting strangely, I pretended to be calm and put the bead down. Then I looked at other items nonchalantly. I didn't look at the vast ocean pearl again until the end. Before leaving, Yin Yuzhen asked in confusion, "Uncle, aren't you going to pick a few items? You should know that once Representative Wu leaves, this opportunity will be gone." Hearing this, Representative Wu also smiled and chimed in, "Shopkeeper Yin is right. How can there be a reason to enter a treasure mountain and return empty-handed? Wouldn't that be looking down on me, Wu? Go pick some more." And this was exactly what I wanted. So I took the opportunity to take the vast ocean pearl and selected an additional ancient tree jade statue, so Representative Wu wouldn't notice anything wrong. Representative Wu indeed didn't see the situation with the vast ocean pearl. Instead, he proudly introduced the jade statue. This is a treasure worshipped by a primitive tribe for 1,000 years. It has the effect of calming the mind, focusing the spirit, and strengthening the body. Seeing that he seemed not to know the goods, I asked curiously, "What about this bead?" Representative Wu said nonchalantly, "That one isn't worth money. It was just collected from a fisherman on Luyan Island." Hearing this, I became interested in Luyan Island. After all, it was a place that could nurture a heaven and earth wonder. Just like that, our transaction with Representative Wu lasted until evening. The Wanhua Chamber of Commerce obtained a large batch of treasures, while Yin Yuzhen obtained a large amount of gold, silver, and wealth. On the boat ride back, Yin Yuzhen didn't look happy at all. I knew she was worried about Tianbao Tower's future. After all, without the Wanhua Chamber of Commerce, a major sales channel was lost. I told her that there must be a way when the cart reaches the mountain. There was no need to worry too much. After returning to Tinyu Tower at night, I took out the vast ocean pearl to observe it. I didn't expect a simple transaction to have such a harvest. I just didn't know what was special about this thing. Being named Vast Ocean Pearl, could it be that it contains an ocean inside? Just then, a knock on the door suddenly sounded. But who could it be in the middle of the night? I took out a dagger and asked vigilantly, "Who is it?" Updated. While I was examining the unexpected harvest, the vast ocean pearl, urgent knocking suddenly sounded. I vigilantly took out my dagger and asked who was outside the door. Following the response of the person outside, I realized the visitor was actually Xiao Hong. I opened the door and asked him what the situation was. I saw Xiao Hong saying very anxiously, something bad has happened. It turned out the matter of smuggling had been leaked. Now everyone on the island knew they were not original residents, but had been smuggled in with the help of Tianbao Tower. It was said that the Immortal Master was furious and wanted to arrest their group and execute them. After clarifying the whole matter, I told Xiaoheng not to panic. This matter is not a big problem. If the Immortal Master really wanted to kill us, how would you still have the chance to come and tip me off? As I see it, this matter is not directed at us. The Mastermind's target is obviously Tianbao Tower. Afterwards, I rushed to Tianbao Tower. Yuzhen naturally had also received this bad news. She had even found out that the people behind it were the major factions on the island. The reason was that the news about the fake star sea quicksand material had been found out. In order to retaliate, the major factions exposed Tianbao Tower's smuggling. Obviously, it was to make us hand over some star sea quicksand. After all, we had collected a lot of meteorite iron in advance. I told Yuzhen, since they want it, then throw out a portion. Let them fight among themselves like dogs. Just like that, 3 days later, Tianbao Tower met with the 3 major factions, agreed to hand over a portion of star sea quicksand, but required them to exchange it with materials of equal value. As for how to distribute it, they could decide for themselves. Anyway, they must ensure Tianbao Tower had 1 quota for the spirit pool. This condition was not harsh. So after a simple discussion, the major factions all agreed and reached a settlement. Tianbao Tower thus extricated itself from the vortex. On that very day, the rumors about smuggling vanished without a trace. Time flew by, and finally, the day to open the spirit pool arrived. Yuzhen also kept her promise and handed the dust-leaving pill to me. After taking it, I arrived at a magic array with the others who had the quota. There were 13 people in total. Aside from me, they were all teenagers. It was quite a unique point. As the array activated, we were teleported into a deep mountain, surrounded by high mountains with unseen peaks. Afterwards, we climbed up the stone stairs. We didn't rest for a full 2 hours. These teenagers had extraordinary physiques. They didn't even pant. But for an old man like me, it was really a bit hard to handle. I could only barely keep from falling behind. Fortunately, in the end, we climbed to the top of the mountain without any mishaps. There was only a small clearing here. It almost couldn't fit our group of people. Just when we were confused about where to go next, a man suddenly appeared behind us. Everyone, how is the scenery? The person speaking was none other than Immortal Master He, who guarded Liuli Island. We didn't dare to be negligent and all greeted him respectfully. Someone even praised aloud, "The scenery here is excellent, worthy of being an immortal holy land." Immortal Master He stated that when he first came to Liuli Island, the height of this peak was at the bottom of the mountains. Oh, you know that the mountains and rivers in this world also grow tall like people. As soon as he finished speaking, someone exclaimed in surprise, "Could it be that these great mountains and rivers are living things?" Some peaks seem lofty, but their lifespan is actually over. They cannot advance a step further in their lifetime. Some are just small mounds, but have infinite potential. Perhaps in 1,000 years, they will become pillars supporting the sky. Just like this Shaowei mountain. It wasn't eye-catching back then, but now it looks down on all the other mountains. Of course, more like the countless small hills under the sea of clouds. From beginning to end, they can only serve as foils, silently looking up at the numerous peaks above the sea of clouds. Mountains are like this, and aren't people the same? Today you are fortunate to enter the spirit pool to wash away the miasma. Whether you can step onto the immortal path and pursue the great Tao of longevity depends on your own fortune. No matter what, I hope you will go all out today. Go on, all of you. After speaking, he pointed ahead. But ahead was clearly the edge of a cliff. Someone asked in confusion, "How do we go?" Immortal Master, he stated, "You heard correctly. It is right ahead." Upon hearing this, everyone was shocked. I asked the Immortal Master, joking. Just as the voice of doubt fell, Immortal Master, he sighed and waved 2 fingers of his left hand. In the next second, the head of the person who questioned him was cut off. How could these teenage boys have seen such a scene? They instantly broke out in a cold sweat from fear. Only I, who had seen much, showed no fluctuation on my face. The teenagers hurriedly knelt down begging for mercy. Immortal Master, he said with a cold face at this moment, "I'll teach you another lesson. Stepping onto the path of cultivation, vision and judgment are also extremely important. Weigh clearly what should be said and what shouldn't be said first. Don't blame me for not reminding you when your body dies and your Tao dissipates in the future. Unlike them, I calmly cupped my hands and thanked him that I have learned. Then I wasted no more words. I walked straight towards the edge of the cliff. Updated, facing the edge of the 10,000-foot high cliff that He Jinghao pointed to. I walked out first without saying a word, and the expected fall did not happen. It was as if I was walking on flat land. To the side, He Jinghao felt a bit of pity in his heart. Although his temperament was excellent, his age was really a bit too old. After walking a few steps, I was sent directly to the location of the spirit pool by a spell. He Jinghao stated, "He has already entered the spirit pool. Those who enter the spirit pool first get more spirit liquid. You all go quickly too." The teenagers naturally didn't dare to be presumptuous anymore and respectfully said yes. On the other side, I was sent into a cloud mass. The surrounding white clouds gathered towards me continuously. In an instant, they formed white spirit liquid. Being inside, I didn't feel suffocated. Instead, I felt incredibly warm and comfortable, like a fetus in the mother's body, just when I relaxed my mind. But it suddenly changed drastically. Warmth turned into scorching heat. Scorching heat turned into scalding. It was fiercely roasting me. The magma-like heat flow wreaked havoc in my body, tearing at every inch of my nerves. This pain was truly not something an ordinary person could endure. Just as I subconsciously wanted to call out, returning to truth, to low to save, I thought of the hundreds of years of repetition. Wasn't it all for this moment? No matter what, I cannot give up. Just like this, relying on the ambition of cultivation and longevity that I had always held in my heart, I endured this pain that was like 1,000 cuts. Even if my consciousness was about to start dissipating, that obsession of mine didn't let me activate, returning to truth. At this moment, instinct completely replaced the self. And just then, the mysterious yellow, cleansing heart mantra began to operate. My consciousness seemed to have found a backbone, beginning to recondense and grow stronger. Although still in a state of ignorance, it was like a reef by the sea, standing tall no matter how the wind blew and waves beat. Time flew by, and 3 days passed. The other 11 people all came out. 4 succeeded and 7 failed. I was the only one left in the spirit pool. Logically speaking, the older immortal is, the more inseparable the immortal mortal miasma and flesh are. The spirit pool would completely destroy the physical body to force out the miasma and then reshape the body. This pain should be hard for anyone to persist through. But today, He Jinghao witnessed a strange person. He didn't expect this kid's will to be so firm. It was simply appalling. If he could really succeed in purifying his body, then perhaps even the golden core stage would be possible. Just like this, another 3 days passed. If He Jinghao couldn't sense the aura of life, he would have wanted to rush in to see what happened to Li Fan. As a result, this wait lasted another 3 days. From the initial shock to the current numbness. If this spirit pool hadn't been created by the East Pole celestial sovereign of the 10,000 Immortals Alliance, he would have to suspect if it had malfunctioned. Could someone really stay for so long? Moreover, the materials maintaining the spirit pool array were running out. If he really failed because the array stopped, then this Li Fan could only blame his own bad luck. It had nothing to do with me, He Jinghao. But thinking carefully, this guy's will is so firm, he will definitely be extraordinary if he succeeds in the future. Forget it, I'll treat it as a gamble. He Jinghao sighed. He immediately took out the last portion of materials he had quietly saved. You kid better not disappoint me. Time flew by, and another 2 days passed. I walked out of the spirit pool with a smile. He Jinghao also smiled and congratulated. Congratulations, little friend. From now on, the filth is gone, and there is hope for longevity. I looked at him in confusion. Why was he so polite and enthusiastic towards me? He Jinghao helplessly explained clearly. Little friend, you don't know. You stayed in there for a full 11 days. If I hadn't spent my own capital to add array materials for you, I'm afraid it would have ended in failure long ago. I was shocked upon hearing this. Was it really that long? Then I hurriedly checked my personal panel. I found that my lifespan had increased to a limit of 120 years. The psychological age limit also increased to 2053 years. This increase almost doubled. And what surprised me even more was that the mysterious yellow cleansing heart mantra had actually turned into the mysterious yellow refining heart mantra. However, now is not the time to look closely. Better to wait until I get back to study it. So I closed the panel and thanked He Jinghao for his help, and promised that there would be a generous return in the future. And this was exactly what He Jinghao wanted. Then he explained that after removing the miasma, one begins to sense the spiritual energy of heaven and earth and draw qi into the body. As long as one can condense a trace of spiritual energy in the body, it represents entering the qi condensation stage. This 5 spirits sense qi method is a summary of the experience of predecessors. Take it back and study it well. Also, the dust-leaving talisman must be carried with you before you succeed in drawing qi, because you still need to live in the mortal world. If you're in contact with mortals for a long time every day, it is inevitable that you will be contaminated with miasma again. This dust-leaving talisman is used to help you isolate it. However, it can only last for 5 years. After you break through to the qi condensation stage, you can come to the island to find me. At that time, I will lead you to the 10,000 Immortals Alliance's station in the Tsongyun Sea, Wanxian Island. Afterwards, He Jinghao explained some precautions and then sent me away. This mountain's potential is exhausted. It is time to change mountains. It turned out that the cultivation method He Jinghao practiced was the sitting mountain decision. Its biggest characteristic was sitting on a mountain and enjoying its success. After choosing a mountain peak, sitting on it upright, and running the technique for several years, one can merge one's own aura with the mountain peak. Afterwards, for every bit the mountain peak grows, his cultivation can receive feedback and increase accordingly. And besides benefiting from the mountain peak, he can also gain benefits from helping others. Just like helping Li Fan this time. If Li Fan can break through to the qi condensation stage in the future, he can also receive feedback in the unseen world to increase his cultivation. How much he gives also determines how much harvest he will have in the future. So as long as he meets a junior with a future, He Jinghao will not be stingy in giving them a hand. On the other side, I didn't alert anyone. After returning to Tingyu Tower alone, I couldn't wait to sit down and run the mysterious yellow refining heart mantra. As soon as I ran it, I knew the difference between the two. With the cleansing heart mantra, I would have to run it for half an hour before I could slowly calm down. But with the refining heart mantra, I felt my heart become as clear as a mirror as soon as I ran it. And my spirit was strengthening every moment. After stopping, I began to ponder, why did the cleansing heart mantra turn into this refining heart mantra on me? If immortal methods cannot be cultivated simultaneously, does my refining heart mantra count as a cultivation method? Only one step away from entering the threshold of a cultivator, plus obtaining the magical, mysterious yellow refining heart mantra. In the following days, I couldn't help but feel a bit floaty. But suddenly I received a letter. The content inside made my expression change drastically. A face full of disbelief. The letter mentioned that Xiao Heng, that guy, actually succeeded in drawing qi into his body. He has now gone to Wanxian Island. Updated. At this moment, I was stunned by the letter sent by Xiao Heng. I didn't expect this guy to succeed in qi condensation one step ahead. Clearly, not long ago, he was still telling me casually that he had no interest in cultivation. So you are a cultivation genius playing with me, right? I read the letter several times in disbelief before unwillingly accepting this fact. I also learned the cause and effect. It turned out that although I had handled the exposure of the smuggling in time and assured Xiao Heng that it was fine, but that night, Xiao Heng still felt uneasy and found it difficult to sleep. As soon as he closed his eyes, it was as if he saw the immortal master descending from the sky, beheading their group of smuggled people from the departed world. So in order to sleep peacefully, and even more to become a cultivator, so he wouldn't have to live in fear every day, Xiao Heng began to seriously cultivate the mysterious yellow cleansing heart mantra. As a result, in less than a month, he completely removed his miasma. Furthermore, on the morning of the day after removing it, he succeeded in drawing qi into his body. And Xiao Heng only confirmed that he had become a qi condensation cultivator because he almost sent the maid to see the king of hell when he wanted to have a go with her. Just like that, on the day I just came out of the spirit pool, he found He Jinghao, who had also just returned. He explained clearly the process of becoming a qi condensation cultivator. As a result, He Jinghao almost went crazy after listening. This kid's talent is the strongest one, but I used all my materials on that guy Li Fan to form a good karma. If I had known earlier, I would have saved it for this time. Xiao Heng was taken away just like that. In the final content, he even thanked me, looking forward to meeting me on Wanxian Island. My mentality was about to explode after reading Is this the so-called proud son of heaven? Able to easily break through to chi condensation by himself without any help. Fortunately, I still have the cheat, returning to truth. So what if his talent is strong? Can he beat a cheater? With returning to truth in hand, I have the world. After calming down, I began to look at the 5 spirits sense chi method. The most urgent thing right now is to draw chi into the body first. I saw it recorded that in ancient times, there was the concept of spiritual roots. At that time, only mortals with spiritual roots could cultivate. Ordinary 5-element spiritual roots, as well as mutated attribute spiritual roots like wind, thunder, and darkness, were gifts from heaven. Only the lucky ones favored by heaven could sense the laws of heaven and earth and possess the qualifications to attain the Tao and become immortals. But there are so many mortals in the world. Those with spiritual roots are the minority after all. For the vast majority of people, cultivation is something they can only hope for but never reach. How unfair is that? And facing this situation at that time, an immortal venerable came out to teach the way of longevity. I desire to become an immortal. Why beg heaven? If heaven does not give, I will take it myself. Following heaven makes one mortal. Defying heaven makes one immortal. Defy the principles of heaven and earth to prove longevity. After reading the introduction, I felt very surprised. The cultivation method of this world seems completely different from what I imagined. No wonder ever since I came into contact with cultivators, I've had a strange feeling. The heavenly Tao of this world seems to have great malice towards cultivators. Whether it is that immortal methods cannot be cultivated simultaneously, or the strange death scenes of cultivators shining over thousands of miles like a broadcast after death, or the immortal mortal miasma in mortals that is extremely lethal to cultivators. All imply this point. Defy heaven to prove longevity. The content afterwards is the sense chi method. If mortals who have successfully removed the miasma cannot draw chi into their bodies, they can nurture their own 5 spirits, forcefully absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, and then refine it to break through to the chi condensation stage. The 5 spirits are the emotions innate to humans: greed, fear, rage, hatred, and egocentrism. These kinds of emotions are hidden in the human heart, inexhaustible and ceaseless. Sensing chi is using these 5 spirits as power fuel to cultivate a root of heaven and earth in the Dantian. Once formed, one can forcefully absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth for one's own use through the root of heaven and earth. Those with excellent aptitude can cultivate it in a day and a night, and those with no aptitude can also slowly grind it out day after day. At most within 10 years, they can form their own root of heaven and earth. Time flew by, and 3 years passed, but I still haven't succeeded in drawing chi. This sense chi method requires 5 kinds of emotions, but cultivating the refining heart mantra makes it difficult for me to accumulate the 5 kinds of emotions. On this day, because I had been cooped up at home for too long, I chose to go out for a stroll. Before long, I was stopped by someone, elderly, long time no see. It was the old acquaintance, Zhang Haobo. I asked him how he had been in recent years. Zhang Haobo smiled. Thanks to you, the fleet's profits have been really good these past few years, especially your story, which has been attracting a large number of young people to join. Our treatment and status have also risen with the tide, but I won't hide it from you. I plan to leave Liuli Island with my brothers recently. I looked at him in confusion. Since life is good, why leave? Zhang Haobo said with a face full of helplessness. Mainly because we always encounter strange things when we go out to sea recently. Every time we cast a net, we get thousands of caddies of fish, and there are all kinds of fish. It's as if the fish schools of the entire seabed are fleeing from a disaster. Also, we found that there are more exposed reefs around the island. Although there were changes in water levels in the past, the change this year is obviously abnormal. And the most critical point, in the past 3 years, not a single wind disaster has occurred in the entire Tsongyan Sea. I asked him if it was possible that it had just stopped temporarily, But Zhang Haobo stated that since he was born, the wind disaster had never stopped for a period of time. Even in a year with the least, there were a few occurrences that all signs indicate that there is something abnormal behind this. My brothers and I guessed that something big might happen. I told Zhang Haobo that at least the island had a great array and an immortal master for protection. Even if you want to leaving your native land isn't an easy task, right? Zhang Haobo thought about it, and it seemed right. Then my brothers and I will consider it again. This interlude passed just like that. Time passed, and another year went by. Yin Yuzhen finally accumulated enough power. She returned to Yilan Island in high spirits and took back the position of head shopkeeper of Tianbao Tower headquarters. Because she just took it, she needed to personally oversee it for the next few years. She sent someone to deliver a letter to me to report the good news. At the same time, Xiaoheng also frequently sent me letters asking about my current situation. But I only had jealousy towards him, because that guy was already at the mid-stage of qi condensation. And as for Zhang Haobo, he ultimately couldn't stay. He chose to leave the Songyun Sea with a portion of his brothers. I, on the other hand, continued to cultivate in a disciplined manner. On this day, a trace of spiritual energy flowed slowly into my dantian along the route of heaven and earth. It soon spread to my whole body. In the 7th year of entering the world of cultivation, I finally stepped into the qi condensation stage. Updated. At this moment, I finally succeeded in drawing qi and stepped into the qi condensation stage. Instantly, I felt spiritual energy churning and circulating in my body and beginning to improve my old body. In just a moment, the wrinkles on my face disappeared. My skin also became delicate. Not only did my body return to when I was young, but now I could also drive the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to transform into various shapes. Afterwards, I opened a panel and found that my lifespan had also increased to 199 years. The psychological age limit reached 2,169 years. The increase in lifespan wasn't considered much, but it was also related to the current suppression of the world. In ancient times, the lifespan of cultivators far exceeded that of ordinary people. Finally, I took out the nascent soul technique I didn't have the chance to understand before, the Thousand Mechanics Jade, encompassing Golden Chapter. As I began to sense this technique, countless words and images flooded into my mind like a tide. My temples felt faintly swollen from being stuffed. Fortunately, my divine consciousness was already much stronger, so I adapted. Before long, I also understood the origin of this nascent soul technique. It was the exclusive cultivation technique of the ancient Tianji sect. They believed that the things of heaven and earth were like humans, having their own thoughts. Ordinary methods make it difficult to detect, but just as when a person has killing intent, a murderous aura permeates heaven and earth, and all things will also emit a little spiritual mechanism from time to time. Heaven emits killing intent, thus all things wither. Earth emits killing intent, thus the seas change into mulberry fields. By capturing and refining various mechanisms, qi, between heaven and earth, one can reach the realm of resonating and uniting with them. This Thousand Mechanics Jade, encompassing Golden Chapter, is a technique for sensing mechanisms and refining them for one's own use. After mastering it, one can not only borrow the killing intent of heaven and earth to hurt people, but can also deduce the future through the mechanisms. And how vast is the will of heaven and earth? Even if one can only borrow a trace, its power is extraordinary. Obviously, this technique is extremely powerful, but at the same time, cultivating it is also very dangerous. Rashly contacting the mechanisms of heaven and earth, one might accidentally hurt oneself. According to the records above, if one can cultivate it to the highest realm, one can merge with heaven and earth and embody the Tao. It's just a pity that this Tianji sect has passed down its heritage for 10,000 years, but the highest anyone in the sect has cultivated to is only the nascent soul stage. Fortunately, I possess the infinite possibilities of returning to truth, so I don't have to worry too much about the risks encountered in cultivating this technique. But the main cultivation technique must be chosen carefully. For now, Let's go to Wanxian Island to have a look first. Afterwards, I arrived at He Jinghao's residence. As soon as we met, He Jinghao spoke first. I observed abnormal movements in the island's spiritual energy just now, so I knew you reached chi condensation. Although it took a long time, you succeeded after all. You came to find me to go to Wanxian Island, right? I told him that was correct. Mortal matters are finished. I can leave at any time. As soon as the voice fell, He Jinghao flashed to my side, immediately taking me soaring into the sky, flying into midair. I saw him make a hand seal and utter the word guide. In an instant, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth gathered in one place. Then it rushed towards the sun in the sky. Under my astonished gaze, the so-called sun actually split in half, revealing the teleportation entrance within. Afterwards, it slowly pulled He Jinghao and me to fly towards it. After the two of us walked out of it, we arrived at the long-awaited Wanxian Island. I saw a huge stone statue of an immortal venerable placed in front of me, and countless small stone statues of mortals kneeling below. He Jinghao explained, "This is the preaching plaza. It was built to commemorate that immortal venerable who preached back then. Every station of my 10,000 Immortals Alliance has such a plaza. Also, although Wanxian Island does not prohibit flying, one cannot exceed the height of the immortal venerable stone statue. Otherwise, one will be attacked by the 10,000 Immortals Grand Array. Even a nascent soul cultivator would die and their Tao dissipate. So you must remember this point." Afterwards, He Jinghao led me while explaining various matters needing attention on the island. Because it was a matter of life and death, I listened very carefully and kept it firmly in mind. Before long, we came to a quiet forest. A huge mirror was placed in front of us. Cultivators were continuously shuttling back and forth through it. He Jinghao explained, "This mirror is the 10,000 Immortals Alliance's Tianxian mirror. Legend has it that before the immortal venerable preached the Tao, this Tianxian mirror was just an ordinary mirror. Later, after the immortal venerable preached, the mirror reflected his Dharma image and actually gave birth to a shred of its own will. It later learned to cultivate like a cultivator, evolving from a mortal object into the heaven and earth spirit treasure it is today. Most of our affairs in the 10,000 Immortals Alliance are handled by it. I heard this guy hold a grudge, so be careful not to speak recklessly." Subsequently, I followed He Jinghao into the mirror. Upon entering, I saw only a solitary space. I did not see any other cultivators, as if I were situated in a void surrounded by darkness and nothingness. At this moment, He Jinghao spoke. "This person is a newly promoted cultivator here to join my 10,000 Immortals Alliance." Just as he finished speaking, a voice rang out. "He Jinghao has merit for introducing an early chi condensation cultivator. Reward, 50 contribution points. Current total contribution, 920 points." After receiving the reward, He Jinghao didn't stay long. Before leaving, he told me to just ask the Tianxian mirror if I had any questions. He had guard duties and wouldn't accompany me further. I politely thanked him. Then, looking at the empty space before me, the voice rang out again after a moment. "Spiritual consciousness fluctuation recorded. Independent space generated. Please state your name." I spoke the two words, Li Fan. Contribution points. You will be gifted 20 contribution points for free. You can use them to exchange for spirit stones, techniques, magic treasures, etc. Methods of acquisition include submitting materials, completing tasks, trading with others, etc. If you encounter problems you cannot solve, you can also spend contribution points to issue a bounty. As a newcomer benefit, you can also stay in the Tianxian mirror for free for 30 days. Afterwards, you'll need to pay 10 contribution points every 30 days to reside here. Of course, you can also use contribution points to purchase a cave abode on Wanxian Island. Hearing this, I suddenly asked out of curiosity if I can't make it in the 10,000 Immortals Alliance. Can I choose to leave and join the Five Elders Association? Upon hearing my question, the artifact spirit was silenced for a moment. Update. At this moment, I was asking the artifact spirit out of sudden curiosity if I could jump ship to the Five Elders Association if I couldn't survive in the 10,000 Immortals Alliance. After a brief silence, the artifact's spirit stated firmly, "Once you have entered the 10,000 Immortals Alliance, you cannot join the Five Elders Association, and vice versa. Violators will be hunted down by both forces." I told it I hadn't agreed to join the 10,000 Immortals Alliance yet. The artifact's spirit said, "As long as you enter the Tianxian Mirror and have your spiritual consciousness recorded, it is deemed as a voluntary joining." Subsequently, I asked it if I break away from the 10,000 Immortals Alliance, but don't join the Five Elders Association, can I be a rogue cultivator? Regarding this, the artifact's spirit indicated there was no problem, but after breaking away, all items obtained in the 10,000 Immortals Alliance will be forcibly reclaimed. So please make your choice carefully. In the time that followed, I tirelessly asked the artifact spirit all the doubts in my heart. The artifact spirit didn't mind and gave me answers to all of them. Finally, it instructed me that I could call any time if I had new questions, and then it vanished. According to what the artifact spirit said, I used my spiritual consciousness to manipulate the form of this space belonging to me, changing the void into a simple, ancient room consistent with the layout back in the Grand Tutor's residence. As I touched the items and decorations in the room one by one, I found they were no different from real ones. This Tianxian mirror is indeed an incredible treasure. Afterwards, I called up the technique exchange menu. It turned out the simplest early qi condensation techniques cost 1,000 contribution points. However, the tasks available for early qi condensation in the mission log only paid around 5 or 10 points. I didn't expect that even after cultivating immortality, I still couldn't escape being a beast of burden. Just then, a voice rang in my ear. "You have a new video transmission. Please check." I was a bit puzzled as to who it could be. Clicking it open, it turned out to be my old acquaintance, Xiaohong. The video started with him thanking me for my previous help, saying he had no way to repay me, especially for his abrupt departure that day. He felt even more ashamed in his heart. He also knew that cultivation techniques are extremely hard to come by nowadays, and newcomers need years to accumulate enough contribution to exchange for them. However, he had encountered repeated fortuitous opportunities since he began cultivating and had already reached the completion of qi condensation. He was preparing to go to the Cloud Water Heavenly Palace ruins to search for a heaven and earth wonder for his foundation establishment. This trip might take several years. So before leaving, he left a water attribute technique for me, because this place is located in the Songyun Sea, so cultivating water attributes is much simpler. Finally, he left a reminder: do not rashly leave the island before breaking through to the mid-qi condensation stage. Looking at the minor yin water art transmitted from the video, I was actually a bit moved. I thought that after his cultivation far surpassed mine, we would be strangers on different paths. I didn't expect this kid to keep the kindness in his heart. This confirms his character is quite good. Aside from the yin water art, Xiaohong also gave me a fragment of the Supreme Primal True Scripture. I recalled what Ko Hong had mentioned back then. As long as one cultivates this Supreme Primal True Scripture, one can scatter their cultivation at will without losing too much of their cultivation base. This way, I can cultivate the yin water art on Wanxian Island first, then find an opportunity to leave Wanxian Island and switch to cultivating my nascent soul technique. Although the Tianxian mirror might not necessarily pay attention to a little qi condensation cultivator like me, it's never wrong to be cautious. Afterwards, taking advantage of the free time remaining in the Tianxian mirror, I began cultivating the yin water art without stopping for a moment. Once I started cultivating, I realized the benefits of being here. One can spend contribution points to turn on the Tianxian mirror's assisted cultivation mode. The density of spiritual energy instantly increased to several times that of the outside world, almost comparable to top-tier grotto heavens. Moreover, the Tianxian mirror also bestows an enlightened state. Under this state, comprehension is greatly improved, making cultivating techniques naturally much easier. This pay-to-win state almost gave me the illusion that I was a genius. Cultivation became a kind of enjoyment, and I was immersed in it, unable to extricate myself. But as soon as the paid time ran out, I was beaten back to my original form. After all, compared to the assisted mode, my own cultivation speed was more than 30 times worse. This sense of disparity made me unable to resist wanting to spend another 10 contribution points for another day. But looking at my remaining balance of just 10 points, I ultimately stopped. However, this made me realize the preciousness of the Tianxian mirror even more. Such a treasure should belong to me. It's just that I need a long-term plan. At least right now, I'm completely unqualified to covet it. I still need to earn some contribution points first. But having lost that cheat-like assisted cultivation mode, my heart was always itching. No wonder the 10,000 Immortals Alliance opened this function of a Tianxian mirror. Anyone who has experienced it probably can't help but get addicted. Moreover, assuming the same amount of time spent, saving up contribution points to turn on assisted cultivation is faster than burying one's head in bitter cultivation alone. The 10,000 Immortals Alliance really has its cultivators firmly under its thumb. However, it's impossible for me to waste time doing tasks. I can go the exchange route. Presumably, my heaven and earth wonder, the fragmented steel of stopping, can be exchanged for quite a few contribution points. Anyway, after using Return to Truth, the fragmented steel will return to my hands, but the cultivation base will not change. It can be retained. However, I must take a task to leave the island. After all, my things are still stored in the tie-in boat. Every place on Wanxian Island is monitored, so naturally, I can't take them out on the island. Although I have Return to Truth in hand, it also requires me to use my consciousness to activate it. If a powerful being makes a move and directly freezes my spiritual consciousness, making me unable to think, I'd be in trouble. No matter what, acting with caution is my #1 rule. Just then, I found a familiar mission address in the task menu. It was a task regarding Lioli Island. It was a commission issued by the Pill Hall, recruiting people to go to Lioli Island to fetch at least 20 Lioli pearls. The reward would be determined by the quality and quantity of the Lioli pearls. This was perfect for me. So after accepting the task, I spent 5 contribution points to buy a storage ring to use as a cover for the tie-in boat, and spent another 1 contribution point to activate the teleportation array. I returned to Lioli Island. Arriving at the Lioli mansion, I immediately asked Manager Chien to take out Lioli pearls. The more, the better. Not long after, Manager Chien held a bag of Lioli pearls and said respectfully, "Immortal Master, these are all the Lioli pearls collected by Lioli Island recently. There are 23 in total, all here. If you need more, you might have to wait a year or so." I asked him in confusion, "Why is that? Did something happen?" Manager Chien explained, "I don't know if it's due to overfishing, but the schools of Lioli fish are becoming fewer and fewer. I'm afraid we have to wait for the ecosystem to recover before we can go out to sea to fish." Hearing this, I remembered the situation Zhang Haobo mentioned a few years ago. Could it be that there really is a change occurring in the sea area? Afterwards, I returned to my residence at the Tingyu Tower. After taking out the tie-in boat, I quickly transferred the wealth and treasures inside to the storage ring. Once everything was settled, I prepared to return to Wanxian Island via the teleportation array. But just then, a figure suddenly appeared behind me. "Little friend, please stay." The newcomer was none other than He Jianghao.